Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order. Trying to start on time here, as usual. So welcome. This is the Sandag Board of Directors meeting on Friday, October 28, 2022. Before we move forward, I'd like to ask Carlos to walk us through the interpretation services.
Good morning. We'll begin with the announcement in English, and I will be back with the instructions in Spanish. Or rather, the other way around. I will start with the Spanish instructions. My apologies. Muy buenos días. Se está ofreciendo un servicio de interpretación simultánea. Si nos acompañan vía Zoom, solo es necesario que se desplace a la barra de controles y verá un icono que parece un globito terráqueo y ahí selecciona Spanish o español. Si nos está acompañando a través de un dispositivo móvil, seleccionará primero los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Por último, si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Good morning. Interpretation is being provided to and from Spanish. To use the feature on Zoom, please scroll down to the bottom of the screen where your meeting controls are, then click on the interpretation icon, looks like a little world, and then select English as your language. If you are joining through a Zoom mobile app on a cell phone, tablet, or other mobile device, first press the three dots, the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on Mute Original Audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. If you're joining us at Sandag and need interpretation into English, please check out a headset from the receptionist on the 7th floor. The headset looks like a little iPod and comes with an earpiece which you can use to hear any Spanish comments or questions translated into English. You simply hold the earpiece to your ear and the interpreter will come on automatically. Si nos acompaña en la reunión de hoy en la sala de juntas de Sandag y necesita interpretación al español, por favor diríjase a la recepción del piso 7 y solicite un receptor. Este parece un pequeño iPod y puede utilizarlo para escuchar la reunión en español. Simplemente sostenga el auricular junto a su oído y la interpretación comenzará automáticamente. Gracias and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we're on to non-agenda public comments. Francesca, do we have any?
We do, Chair. Would you like me to do a roll call first?
I would like you to do a roll call first, please. Thank you.
Thank you. For the City of Carlsbad, Mayor Hall. Here. For the City of Chula Vista, Mayor Salas. Here. For the City of Coronado, Councilmember Donovan. Here. The County of San Diego, both seat A and B are absent. The City of Del Mar is absent. For the City of El Cajon, Mayor Wells. Here. For the City of Encinitas, Chair Blakespear.
Here.
The City of Escondido is absent. For the City of Imperial Beach, Councilmember Aguirre. Here. For the City of La Mesa, Councilmember Shu.
Here.
For the City of Lemon Grove, Mayor Vasquez. Here. For the City of National City, Second Vice Chair Sotelo Solis. Present. The City of Oceanside is absent. The City of Poway is absent. For the City of San Diego, seat A, Councilmember Campillo.
Here.
For the City of San Diego, the City of San Diego, seat B, Council President Elo Rivera.
Present.
For the City of San Marcos, Councilmember Musgrove.
Present.
For the City of Santee, Mayor Minto.
I'm here.
For the City of Solana Beach, Councilmember Zito.
Present.
For the City of Vista, Councilmember Franklin. For Caltrans, Executive Director Delarda. For Metropolitan Transit System, Councilmember Aguirre.
Here as well.
For North County Transit District, Councilmember Contreras.
Present.
Imperial County is absent. For the U.S. Department of Defense, Executive Director Keck. The Port of San Diego is absent. For the San Diego County Water Authority, Councilmember, Mel Katz.
Here.
And the remaining jurisdictions, the SDCRAA, Mexico, and the SCTCA are absent. And that concludes the roll call, and we do, for the record, have a quorum. Would you like me to move on to the public comments now? Thank you. We do have one in-person comment and several via Zoom, so I'll ask Mr. Bilas to step up to the podium first.
Good morning, Board. Thank you for the honor of addressing you again. And at a previous meeting, someone said how much brain power was assembled in one place. And I really mean that is true. And all of you, I thank you for the contributions I've seen. I've probably attended more SANDAG meetings over the last 2 years than any individual, save some of the staff. And I'm honored by this agency. And I speak up today because I want to support its excellence. And I went back a few months because I didn't see them at the time, some of the public comments and what I call blogger reporters who just take the superficial things that they can grab and then make assumptions and statements about the competence, or what's even more important, the agenda of individuals. This organization is very unique from my perspective. I've been around a long time, worked in maybe 15, 20 states over many years. And I couldn't believe when I first started coming to these meetings how everybody was working together. I don't see that in the last 6 months. And I have a warning. I will talk about the San Dieguito area during that agenda comments. I live up in the Del Mar, actually in the city of San Diego. But I am a physician, a scientist. We work hard, and a lot of you work hard. And so I'd just like to call attention that when these kind of vague statements about people's ethics, and we deal with small minutiae, it distracts this organization from doing the very hard work you do that is probably different than almost every organization I've seen. You're a combination of professional engineers, mostly, and political people. And so I want to go out to the political class as well, because I think it's too easy from the outside to take pot shots. Now, engineers do what they're told. They don't usually make agenda. So you need to distinguish who's responsible for the decisions that make. My understanding is a 50-year plan would have been a fourth, $40 billion, if it had been adopted 10 years before. And I think we're being a little short-sighted. The biggest issue we have is climate. It is the erosion of the land that we live on, and all the storms and things that are coming up. So during that segment, I will speak directly to the San Diego Lagoon and the bridge over there. I support SANDAG as a public, and I thank them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mike Bullock, who will be followed by Alex Wong.
Thank you very much. Honorable board and chair and board members. I am Mike Bullock. I live in Oceanside. And I want to state again, I think it's been stated before, that your primary mission is to adopt and implement a regional transportation plan that conforms to a plan that will cause cars and light duty trucks, LDVs, to achieve the 2030 climate stabilization requirement. And the reason that's true is because human survival requires climate stabilization. When Dr. Tiffany Boyd Hodgson was asked by the UT about climate change, and I think we all know she's running for board of supervisors in D5, she started by saying, human survival requires climate stabilization. And then she went into a lot of specific proposals to reduce emissions. And I think that was an important reason that the Union Tribune actually endorsed her over the incumbent, who they congratulated for finally recognizing that human activities causing climate disruption. He said 4 years earlier that he didn't know. But we have to get down to the measures. So I'm going to jump down into car parking, that particular policy. And I'm going to quote something from the City of Oceanside's Bicycle Pedestrian Committee. And this is a letter to Mr. Michael McCann, who's Regional Director of Acquisition and Development for Toll Brothers. And it's about the Oceanside Transit Center redevelopment plan. And the letter says car parking is expensive to provide. We should not ignore the cost and how it discriminates against those that might like to drive less than average. It says that it needs a good car parking system that will tie the various uses together at the transit center. There's going to be a hotel, and there's going to be employment, and there's going to be, of course, the transit center itself. And so it needs a single car parking system, and it is described. I see I'm running out of time to describe what that is, but that's one of the things that we're going to have to do because pricing can be done in the time we have. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Alex Wong, who will be followed by Catherine Rhodes.
Quarter after quarter after quarter, the trolley has enjoyed the strongest post-COVID ridership recovery of any light rail system in the US and Canada. How did the trolley achieve this feat? It's not free transit. The trolley was already recovering faster than every other US and Canadian light rail system before the Youth Opportunity Pass and before the Midcoast Trolley opened, as successful as that project has been. Its frequency. MTS's fiscal year 2022 budget boasts that MTS was able to maintain 96% of pre-COVID-19 service levels, which was the highest level of service retention in the nation. During the worst months of the pandemic, MTS did cut frequency, but by September, trolley service had been fully restored. MTS even restored the 7.5 minutes midday weekday frequencies on the South Bay Blue Line that had only begun in January 2020, meaning the trolley began 2021 with more frequency than it had in 2019, even as it added service on the brand new Midcoast Trolley. This is an unbelievable triumph, considering cities like Seattle and Denver struggled with service cuts at the same time. The South Bay Blue Line service increase pilot program deserves special attention. In December 2019, the MTS board unanimously approved a one-year pilot program to increase midday weekday frequencies from 15 to 7.5 minutes and weekend and late night frequencies from 30 to 15 minutes. In the MTS's words, as the region's economy diversifies away from traditional work hours, staff has identified a need to add midday and shorter service to many core routes. This foresight paid off during the pandemic as downtown workers transitioned to working from home and as the region's transit patterns shifted away from long peak hour commutes into shorter trips throughout the day. The best part of the pilot, at an annual cost of $5.7 million, it didn't cost much more to implement than the Youth Opportunity Pass. Apparently, the frequency increase was a smashing success, as MTS is almost 3 years into the pilot and there's no sign of it ending. MTS must recognize that good service, not free fares, has driven the trolley's success. MTS and Sandag must build upon that success and never stop making the trolley more frequent and fast. The Midcoast and the Green Lines desperately need frequency. Mission Valley alone has upzoned for up to 50,000 new residents, and already there's not one but two $4 billion transit-oriented projects under construction. Unfortunately, one of those projects, Riverwalk, decided to build a whopping 1,395 parking spaces for only 930 units in phase one, even though Riverwalk will get its own trolley station and therefore be in a transit priority area with 0 parking minimums. This overabundant parking means everyone who can afford to drive, which is everyone living in the market rate units that comprise 90% of Riverwalk, will drive and clog up Friars Road even more. Because choice riders won't wait up to 15 minutes during rush hour for a 10-minute trolley ride across Mission Valley. Free fares won't get them out of cars and onto trolleys. Only frequency will. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Catherine Rhodes, who will be followed by B. Beekman.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes. Can you play my video, please?
Catherine, unfortunately, I'm not able to pull up the video for you myself. If you'd like, I can promote you to share it.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me get to the video. Okay, I don't know how to share, but I'll try to figure it out.
Let's take the next public comment and I will come back to you, give you a minute to get set up.
Thank you.
So we'll go on to B. Beekman and then we'll come back to Catherine.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. This is my first SANDAG Board of Directors meeting. Thank you. I attended the work group meeting yesterday on equity issues. They talked about 511, the future 511 and affordable housing study programs. Interesting work. I'm new to San Diego. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. I lived there most of my life. I lived here in San Diego in the mid to late 1980s. Went to college at San Diego State for a few years. And now I'm back. I wanted to be around the warm ocean water and sunny days and warm nights. So I worked a lot on issues in the past 8 years towards more open, accountable practices with the future of surveillance technology and data collection for local communities. It's ALCU started some interesting ideas that I think offer something really, really impressive for the future of a whole community process and really how to bring all parts of the community together towards concepts of openness, accountability, open democracy, ideas of peace before war and harmful decision-making in our local ideas. And I'm really interested to learn those concepts. So I just wanted to introduce myself to you at this time, and that these concepts are important to me, and that I will be, now I used to work up, I'll be working on those issues a lot down here, or somewhat. I'm new to this sort of process. The ordinance ideas is allowing me to learn how to be a part of the government process. So I will thank you for your patience and what I will try to contribute. In the Bay Area, I was working a lot in San Jose, Oakland, Fremont areas, and with Bayuasi, which they're a little bit hidden down here in San Diego, it seems like. But I'm hoping the work of SANDAG and UDC, its public meeting process can help with the openness and accountability issues that I think we're all striving for. And whenever I can help to point out improvements and just to ask questions, I hope that can be respected. I want to do it well. And I think to conclude the end of the first, to speak to the first public commenters' comments, that there is a way that there can be constructive criticism about a future that's really good and possible. And good luck. I don't know quite what that is. I'm hoping to work on that with you guys to discover what that can be. And that takes effort and good dialogue from all of us. So thanks for your time. And I'll be here for the next couple of years. So hopefully be talking to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you. And Catherine, you should be able to share your screen now. And once you go ahead and get started on your comments, we'll start your timer.
Okay, it says you cannot start screen sharing while the other participant is sharing.
Okay, you should be able to go ahead now. The production team
Okay,
not sharing anymore.
great. I think I'm doing it. Share. Okay.
Catherine, we're not seeing anything on our side.
Are you saying anything now?
I can hear it, but I can't see it.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, maybe I just can't show it. Okay, so anyway, I sent an email out and hopefully you'll all get it. And what this is a video that the Port of San Diego made in, excuse me, the Port of San Francisco made in 2018 in order to get a new special tax, which was a property tax for voters. And they got an 82% approval rating for that. And that's because this is, what they wanted to do is build a new seawall. But in San Francisco, they have different problems than we have in San Diego. In San Francisco, it's about 250 feet or so until you get to the good stuff. But here in San Diego, sometimes it's only about 20 feet, sometimes it's 40 feet, depending upon it. But to get rid of the liquefaction, you really pretty much only have to get rid of about 40 feet. And back when the Port of San Diego was established, up until like the mid 2000s, the Port of San Diego had a policy that under every building, you had to build 2 feet of basements, every building. But then the developers would come along and say, hey, let us build our parking structure up in the sky on piles. And, you know, the city allowed it. And so I wanted to show you this area because this is the whole entire area where San Diego is voting on Measure C, which I think people should vote no on. And the reason for that is in their approved, CEQA approved environmental impact report that's outside of the coastal zone. They already said that they could basically do anything they want. In fact, in the Midway Rising plans, they say that they're building no basements under anything. Everything's going to be built at grade. I'm not sure if they're going to be built on piles or not. But I believe the existing sports arena was built as a bathtub foundation. I think that the original port building was built as a bathtub foundation. The Navy Broadway complex is being built as a bathtub foundation. Seaport Village is being built as a bathtub foundation. The airport has 2 cisterns that are being built basically as a bathtub foundation. Now the city for the Pure Water Marina Pump Station is building the foundation as a bathtub foundation, thankfully, because what bathtub foundation does is 2 things. It gets rid of your junky liquefiable soils, and it creates a foundation on which to found your building on. Instead, what you're doing is you're building on shifting sands, and you're creating soft stories when you build on piles. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. And I did want to let you know, I did distribute the links to your video to the board members yesterday afternoon, and I'll also follow up with you after the meeting and go over the process for sharing your screen so that next time you'll be able to do that without any issue. So I apologize for that.
Thank you so much.
Sure. We have 2 remaining public commenters, the person with the phone number ending in 899 and Nicole Burgess, I believe, and that'll be the end of the public comments.
Hi, Mary D. here. First, I want to say thank you to this body for its professionalism and responsiveness. I attend many meetings across a variety of entities and agencies, and Sandag has always seemed the most professional, almost a corporate feel. And I think your clerk, Francesca, always does a great job. I take the time to tell you this because I had the exact opposite experience yesterday at the San Diego County Water Authority meeting. What I saw there was actually shocking, or I should say what I heard there, from only a single opportunity at the very beginning for the public to comment, which is before any itemized presentations are given. So there is no later opportunity after the fact to raise questions or make concerns known, which is disenfranchisement. To members who need to brush up on both the Brown Act and Robert's Rules of Orders, to an antiquated we call you system where the clerk calls each person who wishes to speak, which harken back to the days of AOL and dial-up. Then there is the idea of their idea of virtual meeting, which is largely audio-based, except for presentations. As a listener, I frequently had no idea who was doing the talking as things were being discussed. For the public, it was akin to being a blind man at the Louvre. On another note, and for your awareness, there sadly seems to be at least 3 stragglers in the race to reopen last in San Diego County, with the city of Del Mar running neck and neck with the Sweetwater Authority and the San Diego County Water Authority as homestretch holdouts in hiding behind COVID and clinging to virtual meetings. So there is a great irony today in seeing some of the representatives here when they just voted to keep their own meetings virtual because meeting in person posed a, quote, grave safety risk. That excuse is made even more comical when I see some of them out and about on the campaign trail as well. Lastly, I again emphasize the urgency in repairing our dams. The Ring of Fire, which is always active, seems increasingly so. With the recent 5.1 quake in San Jose, I fervently urge you, and especially the city of San Diego, to make dam retrofitting, repair, and replacement of our own infrastructure a top priority, especially before you think about pivoting to new projects like a trolley into another sovereign country. Lastly, I also do urge you to live stream your meetings on YouTube like the County of San Diego does under the umbrella of accessibility. My computer's pretty old and I no longer have the storage to download Zoom. So YouTube is an equitable alternative that allows everyone to watch the meetings instead of just having to listen in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Nicole Burgess.
Good morning, Sandag board members, and happy Friday. I actually thought I was going to get bumped to the end, and which would have been fine. I would have probably tried to get my ride in and see you in person, but since I'm not, I'm at home and I'll miss that ride. I know you've had a wonderful, busy couple weeks. Netherlands, Otay Crossing, the Lausanne Corridor, Pete Buttigieg, Laura Friedman in town, all these amazing things. You're meeting your priorities. Thank you for the leadership. And then I have to take a time to breathe because it's tough. Those challenges are real and there's hard answers to be answered. And how do you reduce 19% reduction in VMTs, GHGs? How does a city like City of San Diego under mayorship Gloria, how do you reduce your VMTs by 19%? And how do you get your 11,000 employees to reduce their VMTs by 19%? And then we want to add another highway lane to create 12.5 million more vehicle miles traveled. I understand the constraints. I sit on the City of San Diego Mobility Board and represent D5. I visit my mom in Escondido, currently often a lot, and health concerns. And I go by car, bus, bike. And so I know the things there. They need transit. And we need to ask Sandag and we need to ask MTS to get transit sooner than 2050. I also want to comment your 1.5 million consent agenda to amend a plan is ridiculous spending. Come on, body, we got to work together. We're amending this plan. It's being redone in 2025. Let's take that money and use it for education. So I was visiting my mom at the nice trolley station up at UCSD. You know, of course, I'm like, oh, I'll walk. It was the first time I actually got to use the bus 35 into OB. It was a beautiful night. I'll make the best of it, right? But every employee there at Scripps, of course, I'm going to ask them, where do you live? How do you get there? You look out this window of this beautiful hospital and you see this trolley station. I'm like, they don't even know about it. They don't even know that there's a trolley out there that can take them partway home. So there's a lot of education, there's a lot of things, and I'm asking you as leaders, last thing, my 30 seconds, is I want you to be bold. I think the leadership at Mayor Gloria, you had some bold leaders coming out on a bike ride with me. So thank you. It's about taking the lane and riding. As a climate warrior, it means ditching the car and riding. And it's about feeling great. Every time you ride. Dennis Desmond from MTS, thank you for riding, because it's the best way to commute in the city. Never underestimate it. Happy Friday to you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes the public commenters.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the public comment today. Now we'll move on to the CEO report from Hassan.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, board members. This agency continued to do amazing things on behalf of San Diegans, all 3.3 million of them. Last week, Chair Blake Spear joined 117 employers for the Diamond Awards. You will hear from the chair more, but I want to thank all of those who's working to make our vision a reality in San Diego. Also last week, Sandag staff and key project received recognition from WTS, Women Transportation Seminar. Sharon Humphrey, the fairest director of engineering and construction in Sandag, fairest woman director, received the Woman of the Year award. Sharon is not here today, but I couldn't be prouder. For her to be in this field and be recognized as the Woman of the Year is a great honor to have her in our team. Also, Cicely Taylor was honored with the Member of the Year award in our staff, and I want to congratulate Cicely. Many projects were recognized, including Digital Equity Strategy, Mid-Coast Trolley, 4th and 5th Avenue Bikeways. Our Deputy Director, Colleen Clemenson, was the keynote to kick things off. I wasn't there, but I listened to her speech. She did an amazing job. Thank you, Colleen. Over the weekend, with our partners in Caltrans District 11, my partner, Gustavo, with the leadership on this board, Mayor Gloria, Council President Sean Elio Rivera, many others, we were in Mexico City. We were in Mexico City to sign a historic agreement between Sandag and Mexico on the toll revenue for Otay Mesa 2. While this project is not, I mean, done, but that was a huge step toward that completion. And let me say that without Gustavo and his team and our team partnership, this would not be here. And I want to thank many members, but I also especially want to thank Gustavo Orso, Mario Orso. Now his name is yours, right? Mario, who is now the Chief Deputy for Caltrans, but also the project director for a decade almost. Never gave up on this project. This project will be delivered to San Diegans in September 2024. This is a multi-billion-dollar project. I was honored to sign the agreement on behalf of Sandag, and I want to thank our leaders, Supervisor Nora Vargas, Mayor Gloria, for signing on the behalf of the agency. I think Gustavo will agree that the hard work is paying off. We were hosted in our ambassador's home, Ken Salazar, who I want to thank publicly for his leadership on this, but also with us was our Lieutenant Governor, Eleni Konolakis, who was amazing, great spokesman. So this project is not only good for San Diego, it's good for California, it's good for our country. And I look forward to see many of you when we open this project, September 2024. On Thursday, I joined our leaders, our Chair Blake Spear, our Mayor Todd Gloria, Mayor Huebner, Chair, Councilmember Zito, Councilmember Castellan, many other local leaders joining our Secretary of Transportation, National Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, on a train ride from Old Town to Solana Beach and Del Mar. This is a very significant visit for our national leaders on transportation, where he saw firsthand how close that bluff, how close those tracks to the bluff. This is building on the $300 million that we receive to environmentally clear design moving the track of the bluff. This is real. And having the secretary here is real. And this is what this agency is known for, pushing big ideas. Partnering with Caltrans, we're gonna make sure that San Diego is an example to the rest of the country and the rest of the state. Next week, I will be traveling to DC with some of my team members to build on the secretary's visit. I'm also honored to be invited by President Biden to go to the White House for an infrastructure summit. We are working together with our partner agencies, our lesson learned and technical expertise across the Los Angeles corridors. As you know, now there is passenger services disrupted because of the slope collapse in San Clemente, Orange County. So this 350-mile corridor, second busiest in the country after the Northeast, is going to be working for Californians and for the country. And yesterday, we were honored to host here at Sandag the Chair of Transportation Assembly, Laura Freeman. She said this, and I can quote her, that Sandag is an example how people do things, not just talk about them. Our 5 big moves is an example of how the vision gets accomplished. You know, it's not easy to do things when you don't have money. That's why when we say in the plan we need funding, we do need funding. But we also were very successful in getting federal and state funding. Just the last couple of weeks, the region received almost $500 million for Lausanne and for Otay Mesa too. We are continuing to move in our connection to the airport, our central mobility hub discussion. Yes, it's a big vision. Yes, it's going to be expensive. Yes, it's going to take time, but nothing going to stop us from looking forward. On the Otay Mesa too, we have an amazing CFO who, with the funding that we get from Washington and with the funding that Gustavo and his team are applying from the state, we're going to be able to get TIFIA and the rest of the money to build the facility and deliver it for both countries. Next month marks the 1-year anniversary of opening the amazing Midcoast. It's almost a year. We opened November 21st of last year. I am happy to report to you that this is now one of the highest ridership in the country after COVID. The Youth Opportunity Pass did help. We have more, 1/3 more riding compared to the last few months. Yesterday, we hosted a housing policy workshop because housing is important and will continue to be important, and linking it to transportation is important. I also want you to know that we are gonna put out a new website to match our amazing achievements. I want to conclude by talking about an issue that's very important. When Mary Kay, our independent auditor, joined, I welcomed that. And I welcomed her staff because I believe very strongly that their work is important, that an oversight is important. But unfortunately, her audits are being used by some on this board to trash this agency and its staff. We had the contract audit was released to the audit committee. The chair is here. I was there. With Mary Kay, we presented the report and the management response to the report. It was a great discussion from all members. Unanimously agreed to move it to the board. Mary Kay herself said in her report, the auditors did not find any fraud or intentional wrongdoing in this review. But what did some of you do? They go on TV and they absolutely told untruth about Sandag misspent and Sandag over this and over that. That what not the report says. That not was the goal of the report. The goal of the report was to strengthen controls and policies. You know, the truth is important. Buddha once said, 3 things cannot long be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. The truth will come out, no matter what. So for some of you to stand in front of cameras and talk like they do, they're using alternate truth, alternate reality. I'm ashamed of that. Very ashamed of that. You want the truth? Go out and say it. But don't trash this agency just because you have political motives. As to the call of me being fired or resigning, that call was there the first week I was here. I'm coming in my 4th anniversary. You're not doing a very good job if that's what you want to do. And I will tell you this, I will absolutely continue to do the amazing work with my team, because we're doing amazing work truly, bringing billions of dollars to the region. We're not into this sensational news, political BS. So for those who out there publicly violating every rules in the book, talking about this and the truth will come out. Chair, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. We will go to public comments on the CEO report if we have any. We do have one right here.
Thank you, Chair. We had one in person and two virtual. So we'll start with Tim Bylish, and then we'll go to Catherine Rhodes.
I'd like a moment of silence, I think, for these 3 minutes. I started attending SANDAG meetings, I think about 2 years ago, and I saw an amazing organization that just did what I would expect them to do. So I won't say very much. I just want to echo what the CEO's comments just were, because it's what I've seen. And I'm concerned that there are those who feel SANDAG resists some political motives, perhaps, or personal motives, or out of ignorance, I think, mostly. Now, I'm a physician, but I'm also a scientist, and I voted for 50 years in the United States of America. And I appreciate each and every one of you. The comments I've heard, some of them have been contentious. But most people just see what the latest blurb in one of the local newspapers is. And I echo the CEO's comments because it's what I see. And how do we know? Well, go and look and be involved in one thing that's important to you rather than opening your mouth or trying to make hay out of it. The people that here, the engineering projects that I see as a scientist are enormous, and that blue line was impossible to build engineering-wise. And it came in on time and on budget. And what is the appreciation of the community for that? Well, I live out in East County, maybe. I don't use that trolley line, so it's not important. It is important. We are a community, a diverse community, many, many different cities, unincorporated areas that I've seen. I am not a native San Diegan. I am honored to be here, pleased to experience all of you. And I just ask, are we doing the best? Are we putting the best efforts forward in what we're trying to push? And do we know what we're doing? Because SANDAG pretty much did, but it's in danger from my perspective. And it's my personal opinion, but I would like people to examine for themselves. And I thank also the staff that are working behind the scenes that no one ever sees on camera or gets interviewed in the newspapers. Maybe that might make a nice report for one of the local papers. Actually talk to the people that do the work. Thank you for this comment.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Catherine Rhodes, who will be followed by Mike Bullock.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes, and I'm very supportive of SANDAG staff and Hassan and the auditor. I love that the auditor finds the things. Of course, I would like them to name names and see exactly, the money. I like when you actually have total transparency, and hopefully that'll come at one point. But what I wanted to talk about was, the Lausanne train and cargo corridor is interrupted, and great news, you're going to Washington, DC. Perfect. What I'm asking you to do is think about asking President Biden to temporarily suspend the 1920 Jones Act for foreign cargo shipping during the state of emergency when the train tracks are down. So suspending the Jones Act would bring union jobs to San Diego, and it could help with the LA Port of Los Angeles bottleneck. The Jones Act allows foreign ships to pick only one West Coast port to do business with, so they all pick LA. Getting rid of the Jones Act would be great for national security and trade in San Diego County. Last month in September, Department of Homeland Security waived the Jones Act for Puerto Rico to supply fuel after Hurricane Fiona. This could be a proof of concept idea. If the Jones Act ends, San Diego cruise ship industry and tours industry would dramatically increase. So when you're going to Washington, DC, please think of that. And the next thing I would like you to ask for is money for a reclamation project. And the reclamation project would be your airport corridor that's going to be built on, liquefiable soils, where you could actually, go down to the formation of materials and build your corridor along that. And then what you can do is you could show proof of concept where you can create space where we could actually capture our urban stormwater, or we could use it for parking, or we could use it for transportation or anything. But there are billions of dollars in money for reclamation projects. And San Diego has the whole entire Midway area, Spa War, the airport, your airport connectivity project. And so this would be a perfect time to ask them for that money also. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Mike Bullock. You can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and board members. Mike Bullock. Another excellent report by your excellent executive director that you should support 100%. And you should, all of you should always stick to the truth, of course. It's exciting that the executive director will have access to President Biden. And I want to say a little bit about that because President Biden could do an executive order, and he could do an executive order that would be very meaningful to everyone, but especially to Sandag and your mission. Let me say something about your work so far. The 5 Big Moves is a spectacular regional transportation plan. It sets up a platform for change. Now that platform needs to be filled in, and I'm sure it will be much better in 2025, but it is an excellent start, and you need to focus on some of the details that's needed so that you can achieve that 2030 climate stabilization requirement. And I know your executive director wants to do that, and he wants to be directed to do that. There's some things that he cannot go beyond without direction, and he's looking for that, and you should do that. The thing that Biden could do is he could ask one of his federal facilities that employs a lot of people to implement the car parking system that I've talked about. The car parking system that was detailed and was the basis of the lawsuit when the county was sued 9 years ago. It is the car parking system that I have detailed in many letters to you, and I've presented at conferences across the country, and it's been peer reviewed many times. And it's also in that letter that I mentioned, it's detailed for the Oceanside Transit Center. And so President Biden needs to have an order that system, a process be done where you have an RFP and you get someone to a group of companies would want to be the vendors on that. Ace Parking Executive Director Keith Jones understands the system and wants to do it. So I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public commenters on this item.
Okay, thank you. Now we will move on to Council President Sean Ella Rivera. That's a member comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to recognize some of the comments made by Hassan. I had the great opportunity to join him down in Mexico City this past week. And, sometimes we have to leave where we're at to be able to see better see our situation better. And one of the things that stood out while down there is the respect that Hassan, Sandag's staff, and this agency has from those in the state and around the country who are experts in this work. And so while it's easy to get sucked into some of the, I think, pretty trivial and sometimes cynical efforts to score points here locally, all the while, this agency is doing things that are being nationally recognized and even internationally recognized. And so I wanted to share that because it really stood out to me to see the U.S. ambassador to Mexico know exactly what Sandag is doing, to see the lieutenant governor in Mexico proud of what Sandag is doing. I think that speaks volumes to the work that's getting done, oftentimes upstream of working upstream of some of what is happening here at this board, and should be a reminder to all of us that there is a bigger picture and that Sandag really can and does do great things when given the opportunity to do so. So I just want to make sure I shared that part because it really did stand out to me. I was proud standing at the ambassador's house, hearing the ambassador and the lieutenant governor heap praise on Hassan and the agency, and I think we all should be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for sharing that. I frequently have that same experience, and it's not just the case internationally, it's also the peer agencies that do what Sandag does, but in other states and other parts of the country. When I'm representing Sandag, I frequently have that exact same experience, and it's really worth noting because you do need to leave the area and interact with others who are well respected in this area and work in it to see that we are held in such high esteem here at Sandag because of the great work we're doing, and it's a lot because of the leadership of our executive director and the great professionals who work for this organization and are able to put really important things in front of us as board members so we can make decisions about them. So next I will move, we have two more member comments. So these are comments on the CEO report. And if you have general member comments, I'll take those at the end of the meeting. So next we have John Franklin, Councilmember John Franklin.
Thank you very much. So I just want to address the audit subject. You know, we do have an audit report that addresses $290 million in a differential between what was authorized and what was spent. That's $87 for every man, woman, and child in the county of San Diego. And we have an obligation as elected officials in charge of this agency to understand whether or not we have systemic deficiencies in the way that we perform our contracts. 447 contracts out of 1,627 had no dollar amount assigned to the original amount. 308 on-call contracts, nearly 88% were missing an original dollar amount. We have some big questions that were raised, and we have an obligation as a board and as elected officials to those who elected us to get to the bottom of how we're managing taxpayer dollars. It's not only staff's job to be accountable, it's the job of every elected official here because we are the ones that are running this agency. So I look forward to getting to the bottom of these questions and fully understanding them. I, for one, have reserved final judgment until we hear the second half of the auditor's report. But I do have deep concerns and I do want to get to the bottom of them. And these concerns need to be aired publicly because this is the public's money.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Gasterlin.
I'll keep it very brief. I want to thank our executive director for bringing Pete Buttigieg, the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, to town by working together with Mike Levin, our U.S. Congressman, to make that happen. And thank you for including Del Mar and for the photo opportunity in Del Mar. You brought together all 5 council members and everyone was smiling and happy and glad that this event happened to introduce Pete Buttigieg to those crumbling bluffs. Thank you.
Vice Chair Mara Sotelo Solis.
Well, buenos dias, everyone. I just wanted to echo the sentiment of Council President Ilo Rivera, who, again, as well as our chair, complimented our staff for all of the work that they have done in partnership with Caltrans, our binational partners. it's amazing to have seen the news coverage and just, it was very, very positive. So felicidades, that was a great event. And I just want to say that tone matters, words matter. And as was stated by the executive director, we know that within the audit report, there was nothing nefarious or illegal that was found. And you can reread the findings. And I think that when we talked about AB 805 and that accountability in the independent auditor's office, it really was to have somebody help us improve processes. It's not a gotcha moment. It's not a, oh my gosh, this is, you're doing this and you're, you know, the worst people ever. But hey, this is a way we can have best management practices and improve. And, you know, the tone of our executive director, a little defensive, I'll say that. But when you get arrows and knives and punches thrown at you at every single meeting through the media by people who are on this board, who we all have a common goal to make our county the strongest and the best, not only in the region or in Southern California, but in the nation. We can't go into this job and being here with the mindset that our staff isn't doing the very best and keeping up with all of the rules and regulations. We just can't. And I want to thank Hassan for, you know, again, just reiterating what our team, and we are a team, truly. And if you don't want to be part of the team, you know, you may want to exit stage left, because we really want to make this agency stronger. And I agree, we want to be responsible for the taxpayer dollars, and we have been. All monies that are spent come before us. They don't spend anything that they don't get permission from us to spend. So, you know, I want to say again, thank you to my staff and to my colleagues who continue to advocate for this organization and bringing the voice of our constituencies to the region. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to our consent calendar. So do we have any public comments on any consent items? And if not, I would entertain a motion on items 3 through 17.
Second.
There is one public comment on the consent items.
Okay, let's take the public comment.
Catherine Rhodes, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Wonderful. This is a public comment on number 8, the program amendment for the regional plan, where you're going to get rid of the road user charge and have 1.5 million toward that. When you did this, I don't think you ever gave direction on what alternative financing are you going to have instead of the road user charge. And, you know, I keep on saying that so far in your plan, you haven't put in the 350 million. The airport authority said that they were going to give to you back in 2019, so 3 years ago. And it's still, I don't see that in your budget documents. So when you're doing your budget amendment or program amendment, if you could somehow put that in. And then also, if you could still, you know, in addition to the 350 million, I really do think San Diego still has our grandfathered airport status. And then because you're doing this, you're now going to be doing a supplemental to your EIR. And during the supplemental to your EIR, because one of your biggest project, your airport connectivity, will be on tidelands. I think that you should analyze the salt tidelands, including the Embarcadero Airport, airport connectivity, Spa Ward, the Midway area, the sports arena, and give solutions to what you can do to have full tidelands reclamation to get rid of the seismic hazard of liquefaction and build not on shifting sands, but on a good formational material that in San Diego we're so lucky to have. And then also in these salt marshes, they hide evidence of active faulting. Normally you could look at photographs and you could say, hey, that looks like a fault. But because of the salt marsh and it's underwater, you can't. So these zone, all this area is outside of the Alquist Priola zone. And I think that in your new EIR, you should say that all these areas should be, you should confirm or deny active faulting in these areas as well. And so that is my request for number 8. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have one additional public comment. Blair Beekman, you can go ahead.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Is item 19 on your consent calendar today?
No,
If
it
I
is
may
not.
ask
We'll
if
take
this-
public comments on that item later.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to quickly offer very much of a thank you for the words on the previous item about the future of a international trolley. Just very much of a thank you that you're working on such an issue.
Thank you. And that concludes the public comments on consent.
Okay, thank you. So I have 4 members who've signed up to speak, and I'll call on you in this order: Delmar, Carlsbad, San Marcos, and North County Transit. So if you, just to save time, if we are going to be able to approve the consent calendar altogether, if you want an item pulled, please say that during your comments, or if you're just making comments or questions, go ahead with those. So Councilmember Gasterland.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not seeking to have item 9 or item 10 pulled, but I have questions for points of clarification about each. These 2 items are about 2 single-track timber trestle bridges across the San Dieguito Lagoon and Peñasquitas Lagoon. Item 9 refers to a NEPA environmental review that the Federal Transit Authority asked for, and that delayed their funding, which is why SANDAG is being asked to substitute SANDAG funding for state funding that is no longer available. I'm not objecting to that at all. This needs to happen, but where's the environmental report? Has it been circulated? I believe we have not received it in Del Mar. San Dieguito Lagoon is a sensitive lagoon with a river path, and we're trying to take a lot of care of it. So that's my question for item 9. And I have a question on item 10.
Okay, let's answer item 9. Okay, go ahead, Keith.
Good morning, Chair. Keith Greer, I'm your Environmental and Compliance Manager. The CEQA document, or NEPA document, has been completed. It was completed by FTA and has been circulated, and I can forward that to the board.
Okay, can you also please forward it to the Del Mar City Council?
Absolutely.
And our city manager, thank you. Now, on item 10, I believe there may be an error in, let's see, it's attachment to page 4, $352 million amendment for the shoring up of the bridge, the replacement bridge that sank. So that's a question, is that an error? I don't know, because I wasn't here in 2018 when that amendment happened. And then what was the cost of the bridge settlement retrofit? So that's the actual cost for the settling. And what were the reasons that it settled? Now, those may not be questions we can answer here, but I ask those questions to point out that we're building bridges in 2 lagoons on either side of a crumbling bluff. Questions for item 10, please.
Good morning. This is.
Sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
Good morning. This is Sharon Humphreys. And so with regard to the cost, the total cost of the repair work, it is still being negotiated. And the causes, as you can imagine, there are a number of parties involved, and the actual causes are being litigated with the expectation that we will be going to court in the spring of next year. With regard to whether the 354 is an error, Angela, would you like to speak to that?
I can say that it is an error. That it's actually 352,000. I think that it was because we did them in thousands to make it sort of simpler, and that didn't come through on that item. So that is correct, that was an error.
Okay, great. Thank you, Annie. And Sharon, it's wonderful to see you. Congratulations on Woman of the Year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did that sufficiently answer your questions, council member?
I did, and I look forward to a follow-up conversation that I'm sure we'll have. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Matt Hall.
I'd like to pull 8 and 13.
You'd like to pull item 13, is that what you said?
8. Item 8.
8 and 13, okay. Let's pull those two, and we'll come back to, do you want to make comments on those after they were pulled? Okay, so let's pull those two, and then we'll move forward here with San Marcos, Councilmember Musgrove.
Thank you, Chair. I'll address it when the item 8 and 13 are addressed. Thank you.
Okay, and then Councilmember Katrina Contreras.
I was also going to pull item 8, so I'll reserve my comments for the appropriate time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think we have a new public comment on, I don't know which item. Is it 8 or 13? 9 and 10. Okay.
Tim Bilish, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you again, Board. Items 9 and 10, I live in the Del Mar area, technically in the city of San Diego. I just want to advise the Board and members and the public, probably through the Board. I did a walkthrough of the San Diego Lagoon. Many mornings I go out to from up on the top of San Diego, go down to the shore and back. And it's an amazing area, and I took some pictures, and it took me a while. I apologize to the members I talked to about 4 weeks ago, tried to put it together for some time. So I offer it to the Board because I think it's hard to get the visual of what's going on over there. Different things, you have the bridge, you have the lagoon in the east part, the restorations. You had a tremendous project because of the water liquefaction, has been mentioned by Catherine Rhodes. Damaging areas. I don't know if the Board, if the staff has that one picture I added this morning. Is that available? The JPEG I sent to Lauren Lee and to the clerk. No or yes?
No, I'm sorry, I don't have it ready for
Fine.
you.
So I think it demonstrates this. Part of the cliff fell down on Jimmy Durante. Now you're aware of what happened on the bluff. But that whole area, that whole hill is suffering from what might be termed liquefaction. Makes it unstable. And I know a lot of the environmentals probably were done some time ago. I apologize not being better up to speed on that. But I thought the Board should be aware. I put a video, a photo walkthrough of the area. And for some time now, probably the last 2 years, I've been encouraging communities to consider making a preserve right by the roundabout in that San Diego Lagoon. There is a bird sanctuary. It is south of the racetrack, which is going to have a new station and the double tracking. And so our Articles 9 and 10 at least should be considered together. And also the restorations. These projects pass city boundaries. And so I sent a letter to the Board through the clerk with some photos that are linked for them. And I'd be available to talk more about the specifics. I think it's hard to get an understanding of what's entailed because there's so many different agencies. So I just offer that, and thank you again for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Tim, and I'll be sure to distribute those materials to the Board members after the meeting.
Okay, so I think we have, that's the only public comment. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so we have all items on consent except for 8 and 13. And let's go ahead and vote on these.
All consent items minus 8 and 13.
And then this, okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and vote. You have your trusty little voter here.
Thank you. Those items pass unanimously with those members present.
Okay, let's go to item 8. And this is the fiscal year 2023 program budget amendment to the 2021 regional plan. So if you'd like to speak on item 8, please sign up to speak and I will call on you. So first we have Mayor Vasquez. Are you wanting to speak on item 8?
No, my vote didn't register. And so I was just trying to make sure that my vote of yes for the consent calendar minus the 2 items registered, and it was acknowledged. Thank you.
Okay, great. So who would like to speak on item 8, if anyone? San Marcos. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at the proposal there for taking 1.5 million from the contingency fund. And in the breakdown, it shows $1 million to the contractor. There's some ancillary fees and $476,000 for salaries and benefits. So the S&B are for existing employees. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Do we normally line item fees, S&B, to employees that are otherwise going to be working? Or is this for some reason we're taking it because it's from the contingency fund?
We normally identify staff costs, consultant costs, and other direct costs separately in the OWP work elements.
Okay, but so these employees, I guess my question is, where's this money going if they're already on payroll?
So the money for this project has to be accounted for in its own work element, and the staff that are working on this project's hours have been moved from other projects into this project.
But they're still working. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is whether they're working on this project or another, they're still on salary. We're simply identifying the projected number of work hours on an average cost per employee, and it comes out to $476,000.
That is correct.
Are we moving that money from contingency to S&B specific to those employees or generally to the budget for operations? Or are we moving it at all, just accounting for work hours? So would it be more practical to identify work hours as opposed to dollars being moved from a contingency fund?
The way that those dollars were accounted for, we looked at all of the hours per staff member, and that is the total number of hours equals the $460-some thousand.
We're not actually moving the funds then? We're just accounting for them?
We are taking funds out of the contingency to pay for this project, and that staff is not going to be working on other projects. Their hours are moving into this OWP.
Okay, so we're moving the P from under one shell to another, but we're still using the same shells.
I think we're saying the same thing.
I think my point was made. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Salas.
Yes, thank you very much. So this is dipping into our reserves or lowering the amount of reserves that we have before said that we wanted to reach the percentage point. But I also see that in following items that we have better tax revenues than anticipated because of the robust economy in spite of the inflation and everything else. So the question is that is there a specific time that we can use, or can we use those extra reserves that are coming back in order to supplement and make sure that we build up those reserves more quickly than later is a question.
Can staff answer that, please?
Yes, I'd be glad to, Mayor. So generally, you're absolutely correct that sales tax is coming in stronger than expected, but we don't do the reconciliation until the end of the year once we've received all the funds. So as we get into the end of the fiscal year, our first thing will be those additional revenues that we have, we'll drop those into contingency to try to make up for the use of the contingency funds today.
Thank you very much, and I think that's a very good strategy.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Hall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I need some help or some better understanding. So the majority voted to repeal the 4 cents a mile tax. I asked earlier, why can't we just suspend moving forward on that and not go through this process? So I guess my question would be to General Counsel, is there a possibility of suspending the 4 cent sales, meaning we're not going to move forward on it, immediately start working on the 2025 plan to exclude it from that plan? I'm not sure what I'm getting in benefit by moving forward besides spending $1.5 million. It's going to take well over a year to accomplish this, when it goes through CARB. So I'm not fully understanding the overall benefit by going down this path.
I can answer maybe the why there, and I'll invite Keith, because ultimately this really comes down to a CEQA issue. That actually taking action on doing something or perhaps not doing something, as you're suggesting, requires an analysis of the environmental impacts of what that action or failure to take action would be. This money is looking at funding that environmental analysis under CEQA. To the extent that a direction was given to take action in advance of doing that full environmental review, that would likely put the agency at significant risk of what is considered to be predetermining the outcome, that you're really just then doing the analysis to support a decision you've already made. So my advice to you is to not give direction to staff to take an action or to not take an action on implementing this until you've received that full environmental analysis that will come before you. I understand that staff is undertaking that in as expedient a manner as is possible, such that you can take an action at the end of that and that action can be supported and legally justified.
So help me understand, between now and the time that this is approved by CARB, what can and can't we do?
You can follow through on the plan that you adopted.
That's the 4 cents a mile is still in effect.
All elements of that plan, not all of them are implemented now. Some of them are implemented in the near term. Some, such as the 4 cents a mile, are to be implemented in the long term. But ultimately, to stay consistent with the plan that you've adopted and to keep direction to staff consistent with that until you've done an environmental analysis and have considered that and made a decision on that in a timely manner.
So with that understanding that the 4 cents a mile, it comes in after the 2025 plan, correct?
John, Mayor Hall, you took an action, directed us to take the rock out of the plan. That's exactly what we're doing, based on your action. Now, we promise that this will be done within 12 months, probably could be done earlier. This board will come to this board with an amendment to the plan that was just approved by the state and federal governments. And at that time, you either approve the amendment or not. Once you do, let us say you approve the amendment to taking the rock out of the plan, this plan will be submitted to the state of California for their review. So this will be done by June of 23, so in a few months. We are going to come back in December to give you an update in our work toward that amendment that you directed us to do.
So doesn't the report say it's going to take you 6 months to process, 3 months to go out to community? That's 9 months.
Yeah.
So that's into the beginning of the fourth quarter of next year or the end of the third quarter. And then it's going to take probably 6 months to go through CARB, is it not?
Well, we don't know. We don't determine that. All I can tell you is we will stay within the 12 months. We told you we're actually going to do it earlier. We're working really hard to make sure it's in front of you, an amendment to the 2021 Regional Transportation Plan that did not have the rock. And at that time, if you approve that amendment, will be submitted to the state. I can control what the state does and how long they take, but we're going to live within the 12 months that you directed us to do.
Okay. And then my next question is, as we're working on this, obviously many of us are working on our arena plans where you're doing the modeling for, our transportation and so on and so forth. Are those being suspended while we're working on this?
Nothing is suspended right now. We have an approved plan. Like John said, some of the elements of the plan don't come until later, but nothing is suspended. We have an approved plan right now. It's the 2020.
Are they being postponed or pushed off?
Nothing is postponed or pushed off until you see the amendment. Once you approve the amendment, whatever that amendment does, it does.
There's many of us that are working on our housing element updates and so on and so forth, and we come to you for the modeling.
Right.
It's my understanding that there's going to be at least a
modeling? Yes.
There's going to be at least a 4 month delay.
Yes, we're suspending all services to the outside stakeholders until we finish the plan work you direct us to do. Correct.
So there's 10 cities that need your help to do that at this moment in time. They're under a certain time frame in order to complete those.
Correct.
Do you think you're going to be able to complete all that work in a timely manner so they can finish processing. There are 10 cities out there I know of at least.
We made it very clear to the people who ask us for help that we're not going to be able to provide that help. We have very limited modeling staff. So your direction comes first. And if we could do after the direction, if they can wait, great. If not, we will not be doing that service.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Zito.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I did just want to probe a little bit on the really good line of questioning that Board Member Musgrove was going in. I mean, to, I guess, clarify and crisp up what I think he was trying to drive at is if we're moving resources from project A to this project, why aren't we moving the budget from that project to this project instead of taking it from reserves?
Because oftentimes the budgets are associated with grant projects and those funds can't be used to fund other initiatives.
Okay, so.
Dedicated funding sources for specific projects, so we cannot move those.
So then we don't have to answer
funds
it now, but I guess a follow-up question is what will happen to those monies? I'm assuming they'll get spent on something, but hopefully something productive.
Well, and generally they're dedicated to that project.
Yeah.
So the project will have to be delayed a bit until we can go back to working on that project.
Okay, excellent. That's very helpful. And then other comment I wanted to make is just, I wasn't at the meeting where the direction was decided, but I will be supportive of the item since the representative from Solana Beach was supportive of the item. I just think it's, from my perspective, it's interesting that we chose this path, which is going to spend $1.5 million to modify this plan. I am kind of curious if we had just left the existing plan in place, if we would have spent $1.5 million modeling the RUC charge, and just, I'm guessing it would have been less than that. We could have left the existing plan alone and just kept going down that path. And then in 2025, adopted a new plan without it and probably spent less money. But regardless, as I said, my primary on the committee on the board has supported this. So I will definitely be supporting this motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Shu.
Since it was pulled from the consent calendar, I thought I'd just get some clarification on how this new analysis, CEQA analysis is going to go. So the question I have is, will the new CEQA analysis deal with alternatives to road use charge with regards to funding as it goes forward in terms of all the systems for developing revenues?
I can address that. The CEQA analysis will have alternatives to the elimination of the policy of the road usage charge. And we haven't scoped out those alternatives yet, but that will be done to figure out how much GHG could be recaptured in terms of reductions.
Okay, so another question aligned with that is this board has made a position on equity issues. In fact, back in December, when we looked into this issue and passed a motion right after we passed RTP, in that motion, equity was definitely a part of that motion. Will equity be and in fact, now equity issues are part of CEQA analysis as well, in terms of who's going to be paying for what with different funding systems.
So the equity analysis is included in the budget. You'll see it as a task in the OWP work element that's attachment to the staff reports. We will be conducting the social equity analysis.
Right, and I just want to make sure that that equity analysis is also tied to what is existing, like the gas tax now, and as well as alternatives, so that we have a clear picture of whether or not we can conform with our equity goals. And lastly, I'll just make a side comment that Mayor Hall and Councilmember Musgrove also brought up is, making a change to RTP right after we passed one and spending $1.5 million. I think that's something that maybe our independent auditor who is looking to waste and abuse should look into. That's a lot of money that perhaps we should have spent better. We spent 6 years doing RTP. No one said anything much of those 6 years about road use fees. This is something that the state is moving towards. So you've heard me say these things before. But if you really want to look at waste and abuse, I would look at this waste and abuse of $1.5 million. We're going to do another RTP in three years from now. And here we are trying to amend one that we just passed a year ago. So I'm going to have to go with the board's former decision in terms of moving forward with this look at this amendment.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. And our last Comment here, Councilmember Gasterland.
Thank you very much. I would like to remind the board that when this came before us, I made a substitute motion for exactly what Councilmember Zito said, and I'm not going to repeat what you said. It was seconded by the county, and it failed. And what that motion was to acknowledge that we don't know enough about the road use charge. And I will remind us, 2 cents road use charge is equal to today's gas tax on a vehicle that gets 24 miles per gallon. Now, if that doesn't parse for you, and if you don't know the math behind it, we as a board need to get up to speed on this, because whether or not we do the road use charge and how we do it on top of the state is fundamental to how Sandag is going to move forward 5 to 8 years from now. So I very much appreciate Mayor Hall pulling this item. I want to point out what we are creating as a situation by pulling hours away from Ray Major's group to focus on this road use charge RTP amendment. 10 jurisdictions in Sandag are not certified by HCD for their housing element. Del Mar is included in this. Let's look at Santa Monica as an example. 12 builders remedy projects have been submitted in Santa Monica during the 364 days, so 1 year minus 1 day, that Santa Monica was not certified for their HCD housing element. So what are we facing here? In the Sandag region, we needed to get our housing elements certified by June of 2021. For most of us, that didn't happen. I believe Encinitas may have gotten certified early on. Congratulations again to Encinitas. I gave you congratulations, I think, a year ago on this. So where does that leave us? We still are not certified in Del Mar. We're now more than a year after the June 2021, so June 2022 came and went. Santa Monica got certified on October 14th, 1 day before their October 15th, 2021 deadline or passed. So what does this mean? It means that any builder who submits a high density project that requires high density zoning and has at least the right percentage of affordable gets density bonus, they get waivers, they get concessions, all under SB 330. We have a project like that right now in Del Mar, and we're going to deal with it. Who knows what will happen? We don't even know whether we like the project or don't like the project. I have to say that as a council member. So that's where we are. Because these 10 jurisdictions that Mayor Hall has mentioned do not have access to data needed to respond to HCD in a timely way, these jurisdictions continue to be uncertified, and that continues to extend the time period, and this includes Solana Beach, in which we are in limbo, and the builder's remedy projects may or may not carry through. I'm going to vote no on this because I made that substitute motion. It did fail, and I respect this board for the failure, but I'm going to just keep speaking up. And I'm not going to make a substitute motion on this one, and the substitute motion here would be the substitute motion I made before, but I will point out that we really should be doing this differently.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to call on the last two here, and then let's try to move forward because we're an hour and a half into the meeting and we're not through our consent calendar yet. So Councilmember Contreras from North County Transit District.
Thank you. I have a question regarding, I know that just in August, our 2021 regional plan was approved by CARB. How long did that approval take from submittal to approval?
The plan was submitted in January and it took until August to get the approval.
Okay. So shortly thereafter, the 2021 regional plan that was approved was amended. And the amendment is such that it takes a critical component out of the regional plan. And it's not as simple as just saying, 1 + 1 is 2, -2 - 1 is, we're back to 1. There's a lot of individuals who, have created a little bit of hysteria around waste and abuse, yet some of the questions that are being asked right now about this $1.5 million are really important. But what we're seeing is that already that some of the chickens are coming home to roost, meaning that we already had staff time allocated to a plan that was approved by CARB, and now we're having to go back and take $1.5 million out of our contingency to redo the plan. And there is no certainty that CARB will approve the amendment. So, there's so much at stake. I appreciate the comments about the 10 jurisdictions that really need Sandag's help to get their housing element approved, and that help won't be there. So not only are we stalling this process because of a road use charge that wouldn't even be implemented until 2030, if there's the ability to do it at that point, sitting here at North County Transit District, we're trying to fight just to keep our coaster frequencies up. A lot of our bus rapid transit is not even going to be here until 2050. And because of the amendment that's moving forward, there's a real possibility, not only this $1.5 million that is going to have to be spent just to do the work on it, but over $1 billion in state funding that we may not access. And for all of us that represent a local jurisdiction, our SB1 funding, we may not have access to that either. And our constituents really depend on us having informed decisions and educating the public on exactly what's happening. So, I'm disappointed that politics ends up moving the conversation in a different direction. I can't support $1.5 million of waste when we had a perfectly good 2021 plan that was already approved by CARB. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last comment, Mayor Hall.
I would just like Delmar to once again tell us what the remedy, what the final thing is if you don't get your housing element. That means the developer can build just about anything he wants to whatever density he wants without your permission.
Yes, the builder's remedy allows a builder, if I have permission of the chair to give an answer to my.
Yes, just briefly.
Okay, very briefly. The builder's remedy, quote unquote, is built into SB 330, which went into effect on January 1st of 2019. And that allows a developer to submit a project and gain a date of submission when a housing element is not yet certified. And when you're more than a year out of that certification, things change. So that's the brief, and we're all in that rather rocky boat right now if we don't have our housing element certified.
Okay, thank you. So I would entertain a motion on item 8. Okay, thank you. We have a motion from Mayor Mento and a second from the Vice Chair. Today's Vice Chair.
Thank you. That item does pass with 9 yeses and 6 noes.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going on to the last consent item, which is number 13. And let's try to move as quickly as we can through this. So who would like to make a comment? Mayor Hall?
Yes, and just some clarity on, let's see, on the very last page, there's a bullet point number 13, misuse and abuse. Could we have some clarity on that as to how many and how much?
Yes, well, there we see our independent auditor, Mary Kay. So go ahead, Mary.
Hi, good morning. Because it's an investigation, I can't provide a lot of detail around that. and I wasn't provided a whole bunch of detail around it. So that investigation has not even started yet. Once it does, we'll get more into the weeds of it and can identify even if there's any legitimacy to it. So at this point, it hasn't been substantiated or unsubstantiated. It just hasn't even been starting to be investigated. So we are making a lot of way through these investigations, so I'm happy about that, but we are prioritizing them on the level of risk around each one.
Does staff have any comment?
Does staff have any comment? No? Okay. Okay.
There's transparency.
I see no other hands raised from the board related to item 13. So I would entertain a motion.
I'll move 13.
Pardon?
Oh, that's information, never mind.
Oh, okay. So we don't need to approve it. Oh, okay. All right. Well then, excellent. We're through the consent calendar.
Point of order. Since it was a consent item and we generally approve a consent calendar, we probably should vote on this.
Well, let's ask the attorney the situation.
When you review your minutes, you'll see that the minutes show that you've taken action only on those items in the consent calendar that are action items.
Okay.
And so even information items, although they're captured within that motion, you're truly only taking action on the approved items.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. So I'll just make a little quick announcement about the Diamond Awards, because this is item 18, the chair's report. So I think the main point of the Diamond Awards, which I'll just highlight, is that when we do our modeling and our regional plan, we look out of where are people living and where do they work and what trips are being taken. And that's how we base all of our predictions about our transportation network. And so the employers are making these decisions about how easy are they making it for people to choose alternative options that are more sustainable. So we recognize these 49 employers who achieve the highest tier platinum, as well as 117 total employers who are doing things like having e-bike charging and showers and subsidizing transit so that there are opportunities for alternatives to driving alone in your car to work. So it's really important that we recognize those types of employers, and I was happy to do that this week. So now we'll move on to item 19. Is that what you're all sitting there for? Yes. Okay, good. This is the 2021 regional plan implementation. So I will hand it over to you, Crystal.
Actually, I'm going to kick things off, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Good morning, Antoinette Meyer, your Director of Regional Planning, and I'm joined today by three of our very talented and smart planners on the regional planning team, Crystal Ayala, Cecily Taylor, who you just learned was the WTS Member of the Year, and Jeff Hoyos. So we're really excited today to talk to you about progress we're making on implementing the 2021 regional plan. And as you may recall, the regional plan includes implementation strategy. That's an appendix to the plan, and it outlines all of the tasks that we will take in the near term, which is between now and 2025, to implement projects in the regional plan. So the focus of today is on the technology planning work and the projects that are underway to really prepare the region for the future of transportation. So I think we would all agree that over the last decade, nothing has impacted transportation more than technology. If you just think about how much your smartphone alone has changed how we connect with each other, how we access goods and services, even do our jobs, it's had a huge impact. And that is just going to continue, that the evolution of technology is going to continue to impact transportation in a significant way. So we need to be proactively planning for it, partnering with the private sector so we really understand where it's headed, and we can really capitalize on technology to achieve our goals in the plan. So we've structured this as a multi-part presentation today. We'll take clarifying questions after each of the presentations, but then the chair will hold the public and board comments for the end so we can get through all of the presentations in a timely manner. And kicking us off today is Crystal Ayala. She's going to give you an update on the implementation of our digital equity strategy and action plan that was adopted by the board late last year and then incorporated into the 2021 regional plan as an appendix. This work is not only essential for bridging the digital divide in our region, but it's also really critical for the future of transportation. So transportation technology like smart intersections, the next generation managed lanes, connected and autonomous vehicles depends upon high quality broadband service. And the fiber communications infrastructure, which is really invisible infrastructure, so it's oftentimes overlooked, is what allows us to have that high quality broadband service in the region. So Crystal's going to start off by providing you with an update on how we're building out that fiber communications backbone.
Thank you, Antoinette, and good morning to the Board of Directors. As Antoinette mentioned, my name is Crystal Ayala, and I'm part of the Strategic Partnerships team. And I just wanted to highlight that because partnerships is really the theme of our presentations today, and you'll hear that time and time again from all of us. As Antoinette mentioned, one of the really key components of the regional plan is technology, whether that's to expand mobility choices, to optimize the transportation system, or even enable things like teleworking. Technology is really at the center of all of that. But while technology has evolved very rapidly, and it's pretty impressive how much we all rely on technology, not everyone can benefit from the access to technology. And nothing highlights that more than the global pandemic that we all just experienced over the past 2 years. And while it feels like we're starting to finally come out of that haze of the pandemic and return to normalcy, I just want to spend a minute really highlighting the devastating disparities that the pandemic really highlighted, especially among those who did not have access to technology and internet to navigate this public health crisis. While many of us in this room are really privileged and fortunate to be able to stay connected to our friends and family, continue going to work or school, that wasn't the reality for many households in our region. And so while the regional plan really embraces technology to achieve our vision of a faster, fairer, cleaner, and safer region, we can't accomplish that without first achieving digital equity. And that's exactly what our digital equity strategy and action plan aims to do, that this board adopted last December. As Antoinette mentioned, we rely on technology every day for many aspects of our lives. And the same infrastructure that allows us to have an internet connection at home or through our cell phones is the same infrastructure that the transportation system relies on. Many of your jurisdictions are already investing in this infrastructure by installing fiber to connect and upgrade many of your traffic signals. We're seeing our transit agencies embrace mobile ticketing and electrify their fleet. And as connected and autonomous vehicles become a reality, the smart infrastructure needed to enable that communication is going to be of paramount importance. So to prepare our region for the future of transportation and to also achieve digital equity, we're working on a few key pieces. And the first one is permitting. One second. All right. So as we were developing our digital equity strategy, we interviewed many of your jurisdictions, the industry, and quickly learned that one of the biggest barriers that inhibits deployment of broadband is permitting. So we're working with your staff to develop a regional policy framework and model ordinance that can help streamline the process for many of your cities. And because permitting really starts at all of your permit counters, we've convened a task force that consists of staff involved in permitting and engineering within your jurisdictions, and they're providing input along the way. We've already developed templates for public agencies who may be interested in leveraging their existing communications infrastructure, leasing some of that out to the private sector. And we're also developing a regional policy that would enable our region to dig once and dig smart. And so what that means is that as we're building bikeways, as we're investing in transportation infrastructure, repaving our roads, that we're being thoughtful and really proactive about also laying the communications infrastructure that will be needed now and in the future, especially in areas where there are gaps. Now, traditionally, while the digital divide is not new, traditionally public agency involvement in the broadband space was really limited with permitting. So sort of stopped there. But as we become smarter cities and a smarter region, it's really important that public agencies have a key role in planning for this infrastructure and expanding this robust network. So we're starting that here in our region by building out a database that's going to map where all of the public fiber in the region exists. And that's going to be really instrumental in helping to identify where there's gaps in the network, where there's opportunities for connections, so that can ultimately inform the design of a regional network that can connect all of our jurisdictions, provide and support your municipal operations and functions, support our transportation system, and where possible, even explore how we can leverage that infrastructure to provide reliable and high-quality internet in public spaces, such as mobility hubs or transit shelters, civic centers, parks. But making this network a reality is truly going to rely on investment from both the public and the private sector. The state is already recognizing this and investing billions of dollars in broadband infrastructure through their Middle Mile initiative. This Middle Mile initiative is going to build thousands of miles throughout the state of what's known as the Middle Mile network, or the backbone fiber network that helps get that internet connection to our homes and to our workplaces. When this is complete, it's going to provide connectivity to many of our underserved areas, and in our county, that's especially significant for our rural communities and our tribal nations. But before the state had its Middle Mile initiative, leadership here in this region had already started work on expanding Middle Mile infrastructure in our own backyard. And through the Sandag County of San Diego and Caltrans partnership, we ventured to implement the state's first Dig Once project, which was adding 18 miles of this infrastructure along a planned pavement project on the State Route 67. So it was really this innovative and forward-thinking partnership that ultimately led to this venture now being part of the state's Middle Mile network, which is really fantastic for this region. And what's even more impressive is that it's the first segment to actually go to construction. As you can see in that picture, the chair, Hassan, and many others joined state leaders, elected officials to really celebrate this historic and momentous groundbreaking in our own backyard. Now, the state's investment in this is certainly going to get us one step closer to achieving digital equity and expanding this network, but it's also going to require partnerships with the private sector. We're working with SCAG to identify, we worked with SCAG to identify 20 private sector partners who are working with our regions to identify ways we can implement broadband projects that can leverage the state's infrastructure, leverage our own public infrastructure, and use that to make that last mile connection to our homes and to our workplaces. So on this slide is a few of the companies involved in broadband infrastructure and internet service providers that we're working with to make high quality, reliable, and affordable internet a reality for many of our areas. As we've been implementing a lot of our digital equity efforts, I just want to highlight that this agency, time and time again, is being recognized by our state and federal partners as a leader in the digital divide space. And that's really helped to illuminate the role and importance of regional collaboration and dialogue in advancing and bridging the digital divide. Partnerships, both with the public and the private sector, are really fundamental to all of this. And you'll hear that from Jeff and Cecily in just a minute, and really going to be instrumental in building the foundation that's going to catapult our region into the future. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Antoinette, and I'm here to answer any clarifying questions.
So I just, to the board members know, Crystal, she has a different name. She's a rising star. Started 8 years ago as an intern with Antoinette. 8 years later, truly a rising star. She's leaving us. So not very far. She's leaving us to the city of San Diego. She's going to be a program manager. We're not going to stand in her way, but I couldn't be prouder of a young lady who came in as an intern and made something for herself. She's really a very marketable commodity around the state. Thank you, Crystal, for all the service you did to San Diego.
All right, if there aren't any questions, we'll go into the next presentation. So also a rising star at Sandag is Dr. Cecily Taylor, and she is on our technology planning team, and she's leading a lot of our work to implement the next operating system. And the Next OS isn't like a single piece of technology. It's really our strategy for how we're going to leverage technology and data to make our transportation system smarter, more resilient, and more responsive. So today she's going to highlight some of the work that we have underway to test and deploy technology solutions in partnership with the private sector. Cecily, take it away.
All right, thank you, Antoinette. So simply put, the Next OS is the combination of technology and data to provide a seamless travel experience across your whole trip. And it's not just one technology, but several systems that work together to optimize the transportation network and collect data to help us plan for the future. Now, the Next OS supports the other 5 big moves through 3 major themes that align with our regional priorities. For one, we have smart mobility, which we're trying to provide a range of travel options for each of us to tune our choice of mode based on the needs of each of our trips. And this needs to include the new emerging ways of traveling and also acknowledge that all of our vehicles are becoming smarter. And then there are smart corridors that can adapt to the real-time demand from our freeways to our local streets and even at the curb, leveraging the digital communications that Crystal described to connect our smart vehicles in the entire transportation network. And finally, smart borders will improve the efficient movement of people and goods across our border with Mexico to bolster our binational economy and the community that we share with our neighbor. So today I'll be sharing a few examples of the pilots and partnerships we're working on under each of these categories. And several of them came out of the request for innovative concepts that you've heard about before, but as a reminder, this is a new approach to working in partnership with the private sector to really find those leading edge solutions that can be implemented now so our region can start seeing the benefits of new technologies. So I'll start with smart mobility. As you may be aware, San Diego was selected by the US DOT as one of just 10 autonomous vehicle proving grounds in the nation. And we've used this opportunity to partner with academia and the private sector, with the several affiliates listed here, to learn about the capabilities and readiness of various technologies. This environment was used to explore all kinds of technologies that can help us achieve our safety and efficiency goals, including connected vehicle communications with Qualcomm, pavement monitoring from iProbe and Honda. And one of the pilots tested wrong-way vehicle detection that would not only attempt to notify and alert that wrong-way driver of their error, but also automatically push emergency alerts to the highway patrol officers and other drivers on the roadway to help keep us all safer. And we're now moving from this testing on the proving ground to potential implementation with an innovative concept proposed by Beep. Now, they are ready to deploy an autonomous, connected, shared, and electric shuttle that can provide those first and last mile connections to transit, as well as the short neighborhood trips. And as part of the idea, they would also install charging equipment for personal vehicles to contribute to our regional initiative for charging infrastructure that you'll hear more about from Jeff in the next presentation. And with solutions like this, we can provide just one more transportation tool to allow the people in this region to connect to opportunities. And as we know that our vehicles are becoming more and more smart, especially in California, then San Diego is a great region to install some smart infrastructure and really maximize the benefit that these smart cars can provide us. And one way we're doing that at Sandag is by refining this concept of a next generation managed lane, where we can use technology to make the roadways, all of our major corridors, safer and more efficient. This technology can do things like detect real-time demand and dynamically assign the traffic lanes to prioritize shared mobility. It can use variable speed limits to prevent bottlenecks before they occur. And it can send notifications to our connected vehicles to identify the best path for navigating these corridors and without any surprises along the way. Now, as we heard from Crystal, this technology can only be successful when there's a robust communications network in place to facilitate that rapid exchange of information. And we're currently working to bring this smart infrastructure to our region through another innovative concept proposal from Cavnu. Now, this is a very complex diagram, but in essence, they are offering a solution that has robust sensors so that we can really understand the roadway environment and the current demand. And then there's a device with edge computing capabilities so that we can really optimize the autonomous vehicle and connected vehicle operations. And we know that when these connected vehicles are able to travel faster and more efficiently, it will improve the travel times for all of our users on the roadway. And these sensors and calculations can also help the planners and roadway operators by identifying hazards in the roadway and automatically notifying highway patrol, by applying machine learning to help implement the best response when there's indicators that the delays are increasing. And with all of these technologies, we're just looking to improve our corridors and move people more smoothly and safely. And lastly, we've heard a lot in the last couple of weeks about how important our border is to the region as we've celebrated the signing of this revenue sharing agreement for the new Otay Mesa East Port of Entry. And that project itself relies heavily on technology in order to determine those real-time border wait times, to clear our travelers more efficiently, and to adjust the toll rate to meet our targets. And this first project I want to highlight is looking to build on those investments by deploying several different pilot technologies in the southern San Diego region to benefit all of our border crossings. And this is being done with help from a federal grant from FHWA of over $9 million. Now, there's several different technologies listed here, but the idea is that these all work together to improve travel at and around the border, both for our individuals and our commercial vehicle operators. So for example, there might be a truck that's leaving Baja that needs to get to the Port of San Diego. And before they even leave, they'll be able to get real-time information about the wait times at each border crossing. Along their way, they'll be able to get updates about how those wait times might be changing, and then they can choose the best crossing for their needs. And it might be that new port of entry based on the readily available toll rate and time savings information they can get. And then once they're in the US, technology along the freeways will help them avoid any slowdowns. And as they're closer to the port, the smart traffic signals can provide freight priority so that their shipments can get to where they need to go. And these same systems will also help our active transportation users and transit users who may not be connected themselves, but these smart traffic signals can detect pedestrians and cyclists in the intersection and notify connected vehicles of their presence. And they can also provide these vulnerable road users with the green time extension to get safely through these intersections. And another innovative concept from Cordoba is proposing to extend this Blue Line trolley into Tijuana, but this project goes well beyond just this transit. They would also be implementing automated passport control technology to provide an efficient clearance process, sort of like we have at the Cross Border Express. And this can be provided both for these new trolley users, as well as pedestrians currently crossing at San Ysidro to really accelerate that border crossing process and reduce demand on our Customs and Border Patrol officers. And with this concept, we can better connect to the San Diego and Tijuana communities through one of the busiest land border crossings in the world. And we know that when it comes to technology, that as a public agency, we really need to learn from the private sector and work together to find the best solutions for our region. So we've been working proactively with our partners to ready the region for these rapidly evolving technologies, and now we're moving forward to make the next OS a reality. With that, I'll pass it back to Antoinette, and happy to answer clarifying questions.
And one quick comment in case you didn't hear me this morning, Dr. Taylor was the Member of the Year award. Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you, Hassan.
Okay, so now for the last presentation. So vehicles aren't just getting smarter, but they are also getting cleaner. And this transition to zero emission vehicles is really accelerating at lightning speed. And California has been leading the charge there. So there's a lot of work that has to be done, though, to prepare the region, making sure that we have the EV charging infrastructure in place and the programs in place to facilitate that transition. So I'm happy to introduce Jeff Hoyos from our climate planning team. He's going to talk about all of the work that we have underway to really ensure that the San Diego region is at the forefront of this electric vehicle revolution. So Jeff, you're up.
Thank you, Antoinette. Good morning, everybody. Today I'll be providing an overview of electric vehicle and infrastructure efforts that San Diego is working on to implement our 2021 regional plan near-term actions. We know that California is leading the nation in electric vehicle and clean transportation efforts, and there are massive federal investments coming to the state and to our region. So in order to meet our regional plan commitments and our fair share of ambitious state goals, we need to expand zero emission vehicle incentive programs, continue to do zero emission vehicle planning, and embrace innovative technologies and partnerships so we can support widespread zero emission vehicle adoption. To put this into a little bit of context, last year we published a regional EV gap analysis, which really identifies the magnitude of vehicles and infrastructure needed by 2030. Currently, we have about 70,000 vehicles that are zero emission on San Diego County and San Diego region roads. That makes up about 2.8% of the total vehicle population. By 2030, we're expected to see upwards of 30% of the vehicles on San Diego County and San Diego region roads to be zero emission. That's just under 800,000 vehicles. So that really highlights the need for infrastructure investments and vehicle investments now, but also planning for the future as we get towards that large number. So in 2020, SANDAG partnered with the County Air Pollution Control District and the California Energy Commission's Cali VIP project to bring $21.7 million to the region for publicly accessible EV chargers. This was a 3-year program that was oversubscribed within the first day, and we are currently seeing about $14 million of that $22 million already locked in for residents and folks in the region. Of the $14 million that's been invested, we have 40% of that going to communities of concern. So when this project ends, we're continuing to incentivize public chargers, and we're looking at about a $270 million investment between now and 2050. So to complement this, we know we need vehicles as well. So SANDAG and the County of San Diego partnered for a Caltrans planning grant and was awarded a grant earlier this year to develop a zero emission vehicle incentive project, which will aim to incentivize about 100,000 zero emission vehicles in the region, focused to low and moderate income residents. And we'll be designing the program over the next 2 years. We're expecting the program to launch by 2025, and that will run through 2035. So we know there's lots of vehicles coming to the region, lots of infrastructure coming to the region, and we need to be prepared for it. So we're planning ahead. I'm going to take this slide a little bit out of order here and talk about the last bullet first, since we recently completed a regional EV charger management strategy. The strategy is for public agencies and identifies best practices for agencies to plan for, design, install, operate, and maintain publicly accessible EV chargers. So that's at public lots. So, at a library, at your regional park, or maybe beach or a transit station. We're also working on a roadmap for public agencies to help implement this strategy, and we're working with your jurisdictions to make sure that it aligns with all the efforts you all are working on. 2 other strategies we're currently developing are the Accelerate to Zero Emission strategy. This first one here that I'll talk about is a collaboration between regional stakeholders, and this strategy will identify roles and responsibilities for stakeholders throughout the region so that we can attract additional investment to the region. We know that there's lots of funding coming to the state and to the region, but we want to make sure that we're getting our fair share and maybe going above and beyond and staying a national leader in electric vehicle charging and electric vehicle infrastructure and vehicles in general. Yeah, the second one here is a zero emission vehicle blueprint, which is for trucks and buses. Most of the planning that's been done for zero emissions vehicles has been just passenger vehicles. So SANDAG is doing the first of the region's zero emission vehicle blueprint. It'll, like I said, focus on trucks and buses. We partnered with the Port of San Diego and the Environmental Health Coalition, and we'll be identifying existing conditions for trucks and buses and goals for vehicles and infrastructure, some of the public siting criteria for infrastructure that will be required for these trucks and buses as they transition, and near and long-term implementation strategies that will not only inform SANDAG, but other regional stakeholders, how we can best invest in clean trucks and buses. So before I move over to the next slide here, we know that electrifying vehicles on a mass scale can be challenging for a number of reasons: vehicle availability, vehicle cost, charging availability, charging cost, the list goes on. But as we get more and more vehicles on the road, we know that the electrical grid is going to be more and more impacted. So we're thinking about that now so that we can be better prepared in the future for a resilient grid and have available infrastructure for folks to be able to use. So one of the ways that SANDAG is looking to the future for clean transportation goals is by looking at wireless charging. Wireless charging is much like wireless phone charging, where you do not need a traditional plug or a nozzle. You can actually just charge your vehicle through a coil embedded in the road and a receiver retrofitted to your vehicle. So that's what we're looking at doing. We did a request for information last year to learn more about the technology. And we found that it can be used in stationary applications, like in a parking lot or at a curbside, and also in dynamic applications. So you can actually charge your vehicle while you're driving down the road, and you don't need to pull over to stop. This summer, we published a white paper which highlights the overview of the technology and the current existing applications globally. And what we found is, wireless charging has the the most benefit and currently the biggest potential to be used in medium-duty, heavy-duty vehicles that would otherwise be difficult to electrify due to high time of vehicle operations or distances that would otherwise require a large battery or exceeds battery capacities that currently exist. So one of the vendors that responded to our RFI has actually successfully deployed a wireless charging pilot overseas. So I'd like to jump to this next slide and show a video that highlights the existing wireless charging application in Sweden, and then we can come back and continue the presentation. See if I know how to do this.
Off the coast of Sweden on windswept Gotland Island, a road that could change the way we drive. It's powering and charging this electric bus on the go, wirelessly.
So we're being charged right now.
We are being charged.
The technology developed by Tel Aviv-based Electrion. Their idea, turn roads into charging pads by lifting a few inches of asphalt and placing rubber-coated copper coils underneath. They connect to a specially designed receiver under a car, truck, or in this case, bus. We lifted it to get a better view.
So this is the charging coil.
Yes.
And this is underneath the asphalt?
Exactly, yes.
These panels are the receivers, getting energy.
So each one of them transfers 20 kilowatts.
Through a magnetic field when they pass over the coils, enough to power the bus and charge the battery. The slower you go, the more charge you get, ideal in heavy traffic areas like busy cities or clogged highways.
This is a very safe technology, and it's scalable and it's functioning.
The technology now being tested in Sweden, Italy, Germany, and soon a 1-mile stretch of road in Detroit.
Rolling out this kind of technology on a large scale would take a huge investment, but once it's in, it's nearly invisible. The panel controlling this stretch of road is hidden under my feet.
Operated remotely through servers and Electrion's software. No cables, tracks, or overhead wires needed. The cost to install, about $1.2 million per mile. The technology could allow for electric vehicles to have smaller batteries and lessen drivers' dependence on charging stations. Instead of stopping to pay, subscribers would be charged by the charge, wirelessly.
Does it feel different in terms of power? Can you accelerate?
Oh yeah, I can. It's very powerful.
Sweden is still in the testing stages, upgrading the coils under the road this year to emit a stronger charge. A possible path to the future beneath the pavement. Kelly Kobiella, NBC News, Gotland, Sweden.
All right, so San Diego and the San Diego region wants to be on that board up there as being one of the innovators, add our name to the list. And you might be able to imagine that this technology could be included in some of the managed lanes that Cecily was talking about, or being used for goods movement operations between the port and the border, or being used for our transit agencies or shuttles. So this fall, San Diego is pursuing partnership opportunities and funding to explore and demonstrate this technology. And we were recently invited by the Department of Energy to submit a full application to deploy and demonstrate this technology in the region. Regardless of the partnership structure and the funding that we end up getting, we know that we're going to need partnerships with technology providers, academia, the utility, regional stakeholders, so that we can make sure that this technology seamlessly integrates into existing operations, while we also develop and understand lessons learned that we need to advance the commercialization of the technology and allow for wireless charging to be a reality of the future. So with that'll wrap up my presentation. I can hand it back over to Antoinette and answer any clarifying questions. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. I hope you're as excited about all of these projects as we are. Mayor Hall, I know you've specifically requested more information on how we're planning for technology. So we planned this one for you, and I'm glad you're here today. And I hope that you found it to be informative. And we look forward to any of your questions.
So if I may just thank you, Antoinette, and Crystal, and Cecily, and Jeff. I think this agency is known around the nation about being an innovator for many years, way before I came here. And we're trying to live up to that expectation. And so what you saw today is not just a good presentation and a nice video. It is we put requests for information out for the private sector. We are gonna do demonstrations because one of the 5 big moves is the next operating system. the whole 5 big moves is not going to work unless we have the technology to support it. So in the coming months, we will be coming to you for funding, for allocating money, millions of dollars, to move these concepts forward. And some of these concepts would further enhance and build on our partnership with Caltrans District 11. Gustavo and I will be talking to the headquarters to see what opportunities exist there. But this is not just trying it for San Diego, this is trying it for the country, because these innovative ideas are going to be the way to achieve the goals of greenhouse gas emission, et cetera. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you. That was a very interesting presentation. And watching it, it makes me think about how transformational it must have been when we put sewer pipes under the roads that went to every home. And that was new at one point where, you know, it was something that as governments was done and now is standard. And so that was a really interesting video. We have a number of board members here wishing to speak. I just want to make sure that, or ask if we have public comment first.
We do. We have 3 virtual public comments.
Okay, and then we will go to the list of speakers here.
We'll start with Blair Beekman, and Blair will be followed by Tom Frank.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks a lot for this item. Learning process for me at this time. Yeah, thanks. The vehicle, the concept of addressing the future of electric cars and single occupancy vehicle use should be important considerations. Good luck in those efforts. In being from the San Francisco Bay Area and mostly San Jose, you know, we work a lot on this stuff. Hopefully I can be able to offer, you know, a bit of what they do and work on. And I can then also speak with them at now this Zoom meeting process in what you guys are doing. And hopefully that can start up an interesting conversation for all of us. I'm not the greatest with these sort of efforts, but thank you for your patience. And hopefully I can offer some sense of what cities in the Bay Area are doing as well. They have already really gone through a lot of these streamlining procedures you guys were talking about today. And I am a person who comes from the practices of technology accountability and openness. So the concepts of streamlining to me are really difficult, to be very honest. I mean, I don't want to at all limit the work and what you do, but in all what you've described, it was not mentioned the concepts of how exactly will you be talking to the everyday public in placing this technology in local communities. That is just a factor that has to be a part of the future equation of how to talk about digital equity, bridging digital divide issues, and the placement of our smart city future. And I just can't emphasize enough how important it is to really address for all the technology you're going to be placing in local neighborhoods to clear that with local community. I mean, really thorough, requests that, there are going to be changes in the neighborhood and time for a neighborhood review. The city of San Jose has learned to practice going to neighborhood associations first, and then cluing them in and allowing community to work through them. There has to be a really clear process. I can't emphasize that enough. And you're going to talk about streamlining. Streamlining constantly talks about how to basically crush and not involve everyday public. Really good luck on working on open public policies and all of these practices. It's not very difficult. It's actually enjoyable and doesn't limit things. It actually enhances the entire process for all of us and what is true sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mike Bullock, who will be followed by Joe Stuyvesant from the Port of San Diego.
Yeah, thank you. Very nice presentation and a very important consideration. I want to read some things from the California Democratic Party platform that relates directly to digital equity and the need to start using this technology that's available to us. Of course, at the very top level, it says demand a state plan specifying how cars and light duty trucks can meet climate stabilizing targets, and 2030 is the first one, by defining enforceable measures. And we need those measures, and technology can support those measures. Enforceable measures to achieve the necessary fleet efficiency, been some talk about fleet efficiency, electrification, and per capita driving limits. So we need measures to reduce driving. There is a bullet here, work for equitable and environmentally sound road and parking operations. Here's another one that definitely supports this work. Support the design and implementation of a single environmentally sound technology system that will collect and distribute fees for the use of roads, parking, and transit. That is both economically fair and convenient and protects user privacy and the interests of low-income users. And then a little more detail in the 2018 platform. So this has been removed. Things are contentious. Work for shared, convenient, and value-priced parking operated with a system that provides earnings to those paying higher costs or receiving a reduced wage due to the cost of providing the parking. Anytime parking is said to be free, that is the case. People are paying for that with higher costs, or they're receiving a reduced wage. And so they deserve to get the earnings. If they drive, they deserve to get the earnings. If they don't drive, they deserve to get the earnings. I mentioned the Oceanside Transit Center and the plans there, and this letter, and so I'm looking at a picture of what they're going to have. They're going to have a lot of residential there. They're going to have office there. They're going to have a hotel there. They're going to have a transit center there. So you have all kinds of reasons to park a car, and you have all kinds of reasons to provide earnings to people that are losing money because that very expensive parking is there. And now this letter did go to Toll Brothers, but a copy went to the Oceanside City Council and 5 people at the North County Transit District. 4 actually, 4 different people at North County Transit District, and also to Marisa Mangan there at Sandag. So she can see what our letter is proposing. But in terms of parking, it says that it should include a comprehensive car parking system that will.
I'm sorry about that, Mike. Your time has expired. We do need to move on. Joe Stuyvesant is our next public speaker. You can go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there today, especially with the quality of the reports are, but I'm out of town. I want to congratulate Sandag for the work that they're doing, looking at electrification in transportation and going out and searching the world for the greatest available technology. As you know, the Port of San Diego has a maritime clean air strategy policy that's out that will have us looking to electrify 40% of our truck trips coming in and out of the port by 2026. So I'd like to offer and talk to Sandag to partner with the port and Caltrans in looking at Harbor Drive 2.0, which is going to be our heavy truck haul road from the port to the highway, keeping the trucks out of the neighborhood as a potential area for a pilot for one of the in-ground electric induction systems. So I just want to again congratulate Sandag and say thank you very much. That's it.
And that concludes the public commenters on this item.
Okay, thank you. So just looking at the time, we're coming up on 11:30 here. So I think we're going to skip item number 20, which is the regional economic update. We do have one other item on our agenda that we need to get to today, the Transnet Ordinance Amendment. So I'm going to call on the board members here who have their hands up, but if you could make your comments as brief as possible, that would be appreciated. So we'll start with North County Transit District Rep. Karina Contreras.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have a quick question. What is the speed of the autonomous vehicles? What's their maximum speed?
The shuttles are slow-moving shuttles that can really operate in a defined geographic area. So they would be providing really more of the first last mile connection to and from transit stations.
That sounds to me like it's maybe one of the low-speed vehicles or neighborhood electric vehicles that are maximum 25 miles per hour. This is something that I've been trying to bring up to North County Transit District and at my council, at the City of Vista, that if we really want to deploy these types of AV vehicles, then the jurisdictions really have to map out all roads that are 35 miles per hour or less, and think about connecting really important resources for our community where maybe the road is at 40 miles per hour. Maybe there has to be reconstruction of that road to make it 35 miles per hour or less, or some legislative push for that, because we won't really be able to achieve our mobility goals unless all the jurisdictions are on board. And anyways, anything that's over 35 miles per hour ends up not being very safe, not for drivers, not for pedestrians, not for cyclists. So I just wanted to flag that here for this group. If we all can individually at our cities and our different agencies that we represent really figure out how to map out 35 mile per hour or less roads to connect everything. And then my final question, because I'll make sure that I go pretty fast here, is when there's discussion with different stakeholders and different agencies, what does that look like? Because at North County Transit District, I saw that, on the digital divide, we're looking at SR, 76, 78, but I really haven't heard too much of that at the NCTD meeting. So what does that look like, and can we enhance our collaboration in a better way?
Yeah, we're happy to come up to NCTD and do a presentation on the digital divide work, but we have a very robust digital divide task force. Public sector, private sector, nonprofit organizations, public agencies participate in that, and we welcome NCTD to be a part of that as well.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Musgrove.
And I would brief, Chair. The system that Dr. Taylor described, where we have the mobility on the freeway with essentially a wireless system for the buses, does that also interface with electric cars?
It certainly can interface with electric cars. So initially, the wireless charging, I think, is what you're referring to.
Well, actually, no, it's the ability for the system to identify maximum usage needs and make those speed adjustments and lane assignments. It would necessarily have to be an open network to do that. So if I'm driving an e-car and it's interacting with my car, and most of us link up our cell phones with the car, and a lot of us do banking on our car, are we going to establish what it becomes effectively a VPN for everyone on the road to secure their systems and the system itself?
Yeah, we'll have to come back and do a more technical presentation later. So this is, at this point, it's a concept that was submitted through the request for innovative concepts, and we're moving into the next stages of planning. We're going to be bringing the companies before you later this year, and that'll be a time to take more of a technical deep dive into the concepts.
Sure. We certainly don't want a system to be taken down by a 12-year-old in their basement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shu.
Thank you. I have a lot of questions, but I only need really short answers, and I'll try to make my questions real brief. First, the digital divide. The history of the digital divide is we knew it was coming, but as we just found out, we were terrible at closing that divide with regards to education. So can we address this digital divide locally with transportation in terms of helping those communities that have the most amount of pollution and having the most amount of difficulty with transportation issues? In other words, we have those maps already. Can we make our measurement of success based on alleviating the problems in those communities?
Yeah, absolutely. And the Dig Once policy and approach is one way in which you can really marry transportation and broadband together, so that as we're making investments in the transportation system, we're also exploring ways we can leverage that infrastructure to also provide free, reliable, high quality internet. So as the state begins to roll out further broadband grant programs, we're really looking here locally on what the highest priority areas of need are so that we can quickly mobilize and bring additional funding to deploy broadband projects where they're needed.
Right, and I'm also thinking of the micro transit systems that we're employing. Have any of you heard about virtual bus stops so that we're getting away from books? So that's, I presume, part of the item. And some other quick questions. Are EV vehicles really green? I mean, I know that they don't emit green gases as they're driving around, but are they really pollution-free?
So there's a trade-off for everything, but they're becoming greener every day, and that's why we're exploring new innovative technologies so that we can continue to power those vehicles with greener electricity and source the minerals that are needed for batteries with a more sustainable efforts.
Right, so we're getting better at it, but I just want to make sure that people understand that EV vehicles are not really good for the environment. They still have a cost. They're much better, of course, than gas vehicles. And with that in mind, though, even though we're converting to EVs as fast as we can, I'm certainly in support of that, as well as charging stations. Don't we still have to reduce VMT?
Yes, state law does require us to reduce VMT.
Right, and some calculations go as much as 35% per capita by 2035. I just want to point that out. And I'm really glad that we're moving in this direction of bringing technology and EV. That's all great. But I just wanted to reemphasize the point that we have a long ways to go. And when technology and things like this have come to before us into society in the past, we have failed to address the equity issue. We have failed to reduce pollution in our most vulnerable communities. And so I hope in this effort, our measure of success will be in that regard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Gasterlund.
Yeah, thank you. My questions are directed to Cecily. Thank you very much for a very clear presentation that made it easy to really think about what you're presenting. I want to wrap my head around this, and I appreciate Councilmember Musgrove's comments because I think the answers to yours were the answer to some of mine, which I won't ask. In 1988, Steve Jobs stepped away from Apple and created Next, and that was the previous Next OS. And that really changed the world when Apple bought Next Machine and wrapped the object-oriented Next OS back into what became Mac OS, which is on our Mac laptops today. You know, a game changer in many, many ways. So you've called this operating system Next, the Next operating system. And as you were presenting, I thought about, okay, an operating system is the layer between the hardware and the applications, and it allows the applications to manipulate that hardware. Here, it seems to me the Next OS that you're telling us about is effectively that layer in between the roads and the lanes and the vehicles that are using it. And you said something that meant a lot. It relies on a rapid exchange of information. And it also relies on responsive vehicles. So one of the most important things that was in your presentation was those beep cars. So the question becomes, how many beeps are going to be needed to saturate the last miles? And how long will it be before those electric vehicles are all the equivalents of beeps so that they're not just spreading information to the hardware, to the lanes and the roads, but receiving directions, policy-driven decisions, and the results of those machine learning clustering algorithms making predictions about where they're going to go. When does that come back to the EV? So the two questions, how many beeps do we need? And when does every car become a beep?
There's a lot of debate out there about when every car will become a beep. You know, I think a couple of years ago, the prediction was 2025, we were going to see large amounts of autonomous vehicles on the roadways, and that's not coming to fruition. And I've seen articles recently saying it's probably at least a decade, if not longer. But this is an opportunity to pilot, to demonstrate the technology, to learn from it and grow from there in partnership, with the private sector. So we're excited to be part of that testing in the United States.
Yeah. This is a real opportunity for lessons learned.
If I may add just to answer your question. So nobody really knows because disruptive technologies could happen. And if it happens, it could happen like the cell phones. Nobody knew that we're going to have everyone with at least one cell phone by 2020. Nobody would have predicted that. That was a disruptive change. I believe there could be a disruptive change in this transportation technology. We don't know that yet. So while Antoinette is absolutely right, we're actually decades away from fully autonomous based on what we know today, level 5. But the disruption is unknown at this time, whether that will be in place.
Okay, Mayor Minto. Thank you.
All I can say is wow, but I'm going to say more.
All right, I second that one.
So has anybody even, other than the $1.2 million per mile for the charging, has anybody even come up with any kind of idea what any of this will cost our region, for instance, like $60 trillion or something? Who knows? Because when you start thinking about it, it's going to be a heck of an investment, and we already have a hard time getting an investment just to do transit and some other things. And I know you probably don't have the exact answer. Nobody could at this point in time. But my concern also is the technology coming, because I just went on a vacation, rented a car, and this doggone car has one of those devices on it that reads the road. You have to have your hands on the steering wheel, otherwise it will start beeping and slow down and stop. But you don't have to steer it. It goes around the curve and everything. Even in some areas where it's 80 miles an hour posted on the, freeway. That's pretty scary. And because you're not in control. And if the lanes aren't perfectly delineated, it doesn't find them, and it's going to leave the roadway, or it's going to swerve back and forth till it finds, because I saw up there on the picture, the little circles off of each corner of the cars, and that's what they use to find the road markings in order to stay in the lanes. So I mean, we've got a long way to go, I think, and it was good information saying that, could be 10 years or more, and then who knows really when we're going to have it. But the technology keeps creeping along, because I know they laughed when they said one day there'll be a person that goes to the moon. And who knows, maybe the next, lunar module will be electric. Although I don't know where they're going to find the guidance for that. So anyways, I appreciate this. I really support the idea of moving forward and learning about this. And I'm curious, can I charge my e-bike on that also? Right, Dave? Can we charge our e-bikes on that? So that one's just a joke, but that'd be great though. Thanks.
Thank you. Council President.
I'll withhold my comments so we can move on to because we've got an action we need to take, right?
There's no action on the last item. It's information as well,
okay.
or it's discussion. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Caltrans, Gustavo Delarda.
Thank you, Chair Blake Spear. Thank you, Antoinette and team, for a great presentation. This is the most exciting part of transportation. And congratulations for the Technology for Transportation Award under WTS that recognize our regional digital equity strategy, which is the best in the state. We are leading the state, as demonstrated by the first fiber on the broadband middle mile being installed on State Route 67 2 weeks ago. And we're the envy of the other districts in Caltrans, and they all ask, how could you get this done so quickly? Well, it was because of the partnership that we had with SANDAG and the county and the California Department of Technology. And following that, we're not stopping there. We got approval from the California Department of Technology to award a contract, a CMGC contract, to install over 100 miles of fiber in the north and east part of our county that will connect also to some of our tribal nations. And we are advertising today a second CMGC contract for another 160 miles of broadband middle mile that will cover some of our south part of the county, East County, and also some of our urban areas where, believe it or not, there are some gaps there as well. And as Crystal mentioned, we're also utilizing our Dig Once policy like we did on 67, and there's another 100 miles that were of broadband that we're incorporating in some of our projects. So in total, we have over 400 miles of broadband being installed on our state highway system to support bridging the digital divide. And last but not least, I wanted to recognize all the hard work of Chris Schmidt, who used to be our statewide broadband coordinator, but now we are lucky to have him here in District 11 as our Deputy District Director for Right-of-Way, and he's part of a digital equity task force. So thank you, Chris, for all the hard work.
Thank you. Second Vice Chair.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I just want to say thank you. It was great to hear from our team. Really looking forward to the various demonstration projects. And again, seeing the video and seeing what it looks like in other parts of the country. You know, it's not digging too deep, but you know, it's actually going above. And as we start thinking of technology, we have in downtown, the free ride everywhere downtown, the FRED. In National City, we got CARB resources for our Frank, free ride around National City, or Frank, if we want to be fancy. And so what we're thinking, and again, just these types of demonstration projects where we can go from one park to downtown to major transit corridors and just do the loop. In Monterey Bay, they also have a trolley system that just does exactly that. And I think there's ways with which we can do it, and I'd love to, you know, continue the dialogue and, you know, the enthusiasm about this. And again, recognizing we're sacrificing one thing to do something else, new technology, but that also takes up energy and a lot of resources, but we need to be forward thinking. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last comment, Mayor Vasquez.
I will be very, very brief here. I'll echo the sentiment of Mayor Sotelo Solis, but also too, thank staff for allowing us to really think about the future and imagine what transportation can be. I'm actually excited. I was really, really happy and drawn in to see that video. I did hear you said $1.2 million per mile for a project like this. If I can just take this moment to tell you that the city of Lemon Grove is a very small city, 3.88 square miles. And so when a pilot project moves forward, just think about the investment that could take place in a small city so that that kind of project could move forward. So I just kind of want to put that out there, consider Lemon Grove. And I really, really appreciate this opportunity to think about our future and what can be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we thank you for your work and your presentation. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 21. This is our last report, and Ariana will present an update on the Transnet ordinance amendments.
Good morning.
And just to give a little bit of notice, so depending on how many public speakers we have on this, I may cut down the public speakers to a minute or 2 minutes to make sure we end on time. So if you're thinking about being a public speaker on this item and would like to tailor your comments to that time, that would be great. Go ahead, Ariana.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so today's item is really just a follow-up on the series of discussions this board and your policy advisory committees have been having on the ordinance amendments. So it's really just about the process. You had all asked us to take a very thoughtful and careful approach to ensure all stakeholders had an opportunity to comment. If we trace back through the steps so far, back in late 2021, we brought ordinance amendment concepts, then we brought forward an updated revenue forecast, then we also brought you a comprehensive funding overview so that you could all see the other types of funding that the region uses to deliver the program. You recently established a mobility working group, and then that mobility working group includes representatives from all of your agencies as well as the transit operators. Its purview is to serve as a resource to carry out cross-agency coordination and develop best practices to implement your regional plan priorities. We established, or the Mobility Working Group established a subcommittee to carry out the work and develop recommendations for these ordinance amendments. The subcommittee is being assisted by an outside facilitator consultant that is going to be helping to develop those ordinance amendments. There's additional information in your agenda packet. They're going to be working closely with the ITAC as well. Okay. And then you might recall that all of these amendments really stem from three main sources. Those include the ordinance itself, which calls for consistency with the regional plan. There's the 10-year review, which calls for an evaluation of the program every 10 years to make improvements. And then there's the ITAC audits, which also help improve the performance of the program. And so with all of those, we've gathered amendment categories for the subcommittee to work on. And so this is the inventory of the major categories that are going to be working on. The subcommittee in particular is going to focus on the local street and road program consistent with their purview, the grant programs, the bike ped, transit operations and eligibility, incorporating performance reporting, digital communications, and social equity. The ITAC itself has already made a lot of progress in developing their own proposed amendments, which they're planning on bringing forward to you potentially as early as next month. And those would include some proposed changes to their membership and selection process. And then the expenditure plan itself, that we would be bringing forward for Transportation Committee and board review consistent with your purview. And this here's just the work plan schedule. Very high level. As I mentioned, the facilitator is going to be helping us to further flesh this out, including work with your subcommittee and the ITAC. Then we plan on coming back along the way, keeping everybody informed, your policy advisory committees and yourselves. And then, of course, bringing forward, that would be this winter. And then in the spring, we would like to bring an overall amendment report so that you can see everything that would be proposed before we would ask the ITAC to recommend and the board to consider any amendments for your approval. Again, it's just an overview of the process for today, and there will be plenty of opportunity to chime in along the way. So happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have public comment on this?
Yes, we have 3 virtual.
3? Okay, we'll do 2 minutes each.
Just going to give the production team a moment to get that timer set up. First, we'll be going to Catherine Rhodes, who will be followed by the person with the phone number ending in 899.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes, and I actually, this one was actually for number 19. I had my hand up and nobody called me. And so what I'm proposing that you do is, as part of your airport connectivity, I propose that you build a 40 by 40 trench for an underground corridor from the car rental center to the airport, and then down to another one from Laurel and Pacific Highway all the way down to the 12th Imperial Terminal. And that corridor right there could be your one dig. That could be your demonstration project corridor for the electric, 1.2 million for an electric road charger. That sounds like a perfect location. And so with the 40 by 40 corridor, what will happen? The first thing you do is you'll get rid of the seismic hazard of liquefaction, because liquefaction happens at the top layers. It doesn't happen, there's a less chance 40 feet down. And what that also does is it creates, one level could be for the people mover, the other could be for the anything you want. And then what it does mainly is that it future-proofs against sea level rise. And this is an inexpensive cut and cover trench. This is not a tunnel. Tunnels are expensive, trenches are cheap. And so San Diego Bay is a gift from God, that God gave us this depth to low depth to good formation. For example, in Boston, you have this horrible Boston blue clay that's hard to build on. In San Francisco, you have to go down 250 feet here in San Diego, we have to go down sometimes 10 feet, 30 feet. I think this would be a perfect location for, to do 2-in-1, one dig. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be the person with the phone number ending in 899, followed by Blair Beekman.
Hi, Mary D. here. I'll keep this quick for respect for time. First, just a big thank you to Mr. Franklin for your continuous stewardship and efforts for prudent fiscal oversight. For the Transnet item, I have to say I am very angry about Sandag continuing to fail to live up to past promises made. Now I hear you want to take the trolley into another sovereign country when you completely failed to uphold your fiduciary and fiscal promises made to us taxpayers on this side of the border. I ask you to act with integrity and pivot back to what you told the taxpayers when you got us to vote on the Transnet bonds. To intentionally pull a bait and switch on taxpayers and now move on to grander plans in foreign countries is downright malfeasance. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Blair Beekman. You can go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks a lot for this item. I think it offers a good follow-up to the previous item. You'll be reviewing a lot of subject matter, and I think it's a perfect place to really work on the concepts that can be placed somewhere within these items, the concepts of openness and accountability practices, along with, like say, within social equity ideas in developing the future of technology projects for the area. I just can't emphasize enough how important it is that you can't just build a digital equity future and want to bridge the digital divide without wanting to also build, open, accountable practices for the community and how you're going to place that technology in a local neighborhood. To not work that way is irresponsible and arrogant. And we're entering a new era, basically, of how to really work with communities to build that sustainable future we're all wanting so much. It really is an open democratic practice that is possible at this time. It's a matter of learning to share and learning to trust that community will give you a good voice and ideas and opinions about how to place technology in the community. It isn't just dictates handed down from government. It's a shared learning process together of how technology can be placed in local neighborhoods, and that has to be trusted. You can't streamline that, and I'm a bit upset at streamlining practices. So good luck how it is a full community process in the future of all these important plans, and these things can work together. I don't think things will be taken away, and that's. Some things will be, but it's important that things will develop in really good terms. I think it is our sustainable future, and that's how you build our sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. During that comment, one additional hand went up. Nicole Burgess, you can go ahead when you're ready, and that'll be our final comments.
Thank you, Francesca, and thank you for the quick minute. I will be brief. I am excited that the working group is looking at this Transnet amendment, and I look forward to participating in that as an outside stakeholder. But I also really highly recommend all cities. You have wonderful city staff, planners, engineers that are a part of this working group, and I encourage all your cities to be on that so we can have that healthy discussion at that point and move that forward. So thank you, Sandag, for all your work you do and the leadership there. Appreciate it.
That concludes the public commenters.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Hall.
Yes, on page 4, discussion memo overview, what is that telling me when it says its purpose with a 2/3 vote of the commission, while others may only be amended by a vote of the electorate? Are we planning on changing any of that in this conversation?
No, I'm not sure exactly where you're referring to, but
Page 4.
Page 4, at the
Top
bottom.
of the page, discussion memo, overview.
Okay.
It's in the middle of the paragraph. Amend procedures which states that certain provisions of the ordinance may be amended to further its purpose.
If I may, Ariana?
Yes, please.
I think what's being
reference there is procedurally, how is it that the Transnet ordinance may be amended? Pursuant to section 16 of the ordinance, it sets forth certain paragraphs that are what we as staff refer to as lockboxed. These are things that can only be changed by going back to the voters. The balance of the ordinance is subject to approval by a 2/3 vote of this board acting as a San Diego County Regional Transportation Commission. And I believe, Ariana will correct me if I'm wrong, that all of the proposed amendments now are outside of what is lockbox. So they are within the jurisdiction of this board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Musgrove.
So to kind of piggyback on that, and for you, John, please, the elimination of the 70-30 split, that 30% that allows local jurisdictions to assign some of those Transnet funds to their critical infrastructure would be taken away and then be guided by the regional transportation plan. Is that correct?
No, no, actually, the audit recommendation just calls for revisiting the 70-30 split. So currently in the local street and road program, agencies have to spend no less or at least 70% toward congestion relief type projects and no more than 30% toward maintenance type projects. And this actually, as part of the audit, was some of the conversation that came out from the local agencies. The local agencies had requested this revisiting of the 70-30 split. So we would propose to eliminate that split and not have to be limited by those thresholds.
Yeah, I guess it's perspective then, because not being limited by it, but when it says it has to be guided by the RTP, you've effectively removed the local control over that 30% and linked it into whatever the RTP says you have to do. Is that correct?
No, actually, the local street and road funds are a pass-through fund, so the local agencies receive that money directly.
If I may, Chair, just to help with this, council member, I think it's a really good point. What we've heard from the local jurisdictions is being very stuck in how the local funds can be used.
The 30%.
And all of it, the 30-70 split, that there's an interest in using that for, say, improving sidewalks or things that would not increase capacity in the cars, but could make for a better walking environment. And so the idea here was to maximize the flexibility, because really congestion relief is only about widening roads. And so you're limited to the split of the funds that you get. 30% are for things other than widening and 70 is for widening. This is a very simplified way of thinking about it. And instead give your jurisdictions maximum flexibility. If you wanted to use what right now could only be that 70%, if you wanted to build a bike lane, like we've heard from, in Santee, you've been talking about wanting to, then you'd have access to those funds. So that's what we've heard actually from your planning directors and your public works directors, the interest in adding flexibility there instead of saying 70, you have to widen the road, and 30 could be for other amenities.
So that seems in conflict in item number 2, where it says require use of local street and road program revenues consistent with the regional plan priorities and require performance reporting. Am I reading that incorrectly, or is that
So maybe
an
Ariana
exception
can
to it?
talk about that. So the performance reporting is what came out of the audit.
Correct.
And the
That's
audit
right.
is saying, we want to understand how locals are using their funds.
Right.
And how, and what is the performance
Yes.
there?
Yeah, and there is already a lot of performance reporting that the local agencies have been working with Sandag on delivering. However, there's an opportunity to streamline that and to make it more automated and easier for the local agencies to report. So that's part of what we would be working on with all of your local jurisdictions as part of that mobility working group subcommittee on developing what that would look like.
So to clarify, that 30% split is still under local control. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Shu.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. For La Mesa, we're trying to reduce VMT. We need flexibility of all of our available funds. And this gives us that ability, as well as do traffic calming systems within our city. And if we can use transit money to do traffic calming, rather than just always using much of it for trying to widen roads, which we really can't do anyway, I think that this is a good move. It gives us flexibility, and it's still certainly continuing with the full intent of what Transnet was all about, at least when I voted it for many years ago.
Thank you. Councilmember Donovan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a question, I guess, for Mr. Kirk. When it comes time for the board to vote on any amendment, will the weighted vote be allowed to amend Transnet?
Yes, it will. For the ordinance, it references the commission. Again, you as the board act as a regional transportation commission for your standard voting procedure. Your standard voting procedure is initially a tally vote, potentially followed by a weighted vote.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, final comment from our North County Transit District rep, very prolifically commenting today. Go ahead.
I always have so much to say, and you only get to see a little small portion from me right now. But I just want to say that North County Transit District stands adamantly opposed to any changes on Transnet Transit Operation Fund that's being currently utilized to increase coaster frequencies. It is irresponsible to pit any kind of mobility that reduces vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions against other projects that do the same. Instead, we should be really looking at all projects that increase VMT and GHG and be able to swiftly say, hey, you know what, we're going to reduce VMT and GHG and put those monies into projects that meet those goals. So just wanted to be on the record to say that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other member comments? Thank you for this item. We're ending this item. So now member comment, Mayor Hall.
Yes, we were promised a workshop in November to build collaboration in July. I just wondered what day it was going to be on.
So we were actually responding today when you had asked about how new technologies would be incorporated into the plan. So part of this was to have the discussion today on things that are happening in the regional plan where we're looking at technology and other ways of meeting our, the needs of the region in terms of transportation. So this was the start of that. I think we're still working on the calendar to do some other type of workshop with you all, and we need to talk with the chair about how to schedule that given where things are happening. I think your last meeting, we're still trying to find out when that is going to be. So we'll be in touch with you on that.
So all I can say is I'm very disappointed because that isn't what I think we were promised in July. It's been said by speakers, and almost everybody here today had some sort of comment about us working together. And I know some of us have been trying to get this to happen for a long period of time. And we said in July that we were going to meet, all of us, to talk about how to build better collaboration amongst how we do business together. And so if this was today, what it was supposed to be, just like our former workshop is what I was understanding, and we had the conversation.
I'm sorry, I think I misunderstood what you were talking about. I was responding to when we had the RTIP amendment. There was a question about the RTIP, and this was the response to the RTIP. I'm not sure, maybe this is more of a question for the chair, the follow-up on the retreat that we had in May, and then when the consultant came and talked about kind of like how the board would work together. So I think that's a different question. I misunderstood your question.
And then afterwards, I think you and I had a conversation at about, when could this possibly work? Because it had some conflicts built into it. And you suggested November, and I said, November will be fine. Keep in mind, there's more than one of us that are leaving this that represent almost 50 years of experience on this board. So the fact that you're not going to gain knowledge from us on what may or may not make this agency work better is a real loss to this agency. So we were promised in November.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that you're disappointed in the fact that this didn't happen. We did have a follow-up from the retreat where we talked about how the board could work better together, and there were a lot of comments. And I hear what you're saying, and I'm sorry that you're upset about it. I'm going to go ahead and call on Councilmember Musgrove.
So just so you understand, some of us have tremendous frustration, and I could go into another 15 minutes of stuff that has been latent happening and has not built good working relationships, and it just seems like it's always tomorrow. I mean, we were started down this path 5 years ago to get to a point, and we're still not there.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Musgrove.
Yeah, it was last month we had a consultant come in to give a brief on that very conference in May, and then tasked with putting together at least a framework for how we could interact a little more civilly on this board. And quite frankly, we're all elected. We're not sheep. We don't take the lead of whoever's out in front and follow along. And so we do our job and we speak openly about issues that concern us. And as I look at the mission statement, when it talks about diverse communities, it doesn't necessarily come down to race, ethnicity, origin. It talks about the specific needs of the different regions we serve. So it seems to be popular when somebody speaks out to then comment about them and to offer comments, as the CEO did in his report about trashing the agency, expressing shame, and publicly violating every rule. That, in effect, is what we're trying to stop. So to have it done in the public forum with the very people who are elected and charged with speaking out on issues based on the diversity of their communities does not serve this body well at all. So I think all of us, including the CEO, need to take a step back and consider how we address ourselves here, but not chastise each other when we do our job away from this arena. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next meeting will be on November 18th, and this meeting is officially adjourned.
Good job.